And then
All right, we'll go ahead and get this meeting started. I see we have a full house this evening, so we'll try to be as efficient as we can to get through this. This is the April 18th, 2023 meeting of the City of Charleston Board of Zoning Appeals Zoning. Present here today are Allison Grass, Howell Morrison, Robin Richards, John Bennett, Chappie McKay, and me, your chair, Jeff Tibbles. Present from the planning staff are Lee Batchelder, Penny Ashby, and Omar Muhammad. These proceedings are being recorded, and we ask that those who speak please identify yourself for the record. Conduct this meeting in the usual fashion. We will first receive information from city staff about the application and their recommendation. If the recommendation is favorable and no one objects to the application, the matter is uncontested. The Board of Zoning Appeals usually, but not always, approves uncontested applications. For all applications, the board reserves the right to ask questions of the staff, applicant, or others in attendance prior to rendering a decision. If, however, the city recommends against the application, or if there is opposition to the application, we treat the application as contested and hear from the applicant and anyone else who is in favor of the application. Next, we hear from anyone opposed, followed by a short rebuttal from the applicant. We then close the public hearing portion of the meeting for that particular application and open discussion to the Board of Zoning Appeals members only. We will then make a decision to approve with conditions, or deny the application. The Board of Zoning Appeals Zoning has the authority to do three things. Number one, hear appeals to decisions of the zoning administrator. Number two, grant special exceptions, a fact-finding function of the board. And number three, grant variances to the zoning ordinance if the application meets the hardship test outlined in section 54-924 of the ordinance. The board may deliberate and make a final decision on a matter by a majority vote of members present at the hearing and qualified to vote, provided that not less than a quorum is present and qualified to vote. However, an affirmative vote of 2/3 of the board members present and voting shall be required before a use variance may be granted. For a variance to be granted, the Board of Zoning Appeals must make the following findings. A, that there are extraordinary and exceptional conditions pertaining to the particular piece of property. B, these conditions do not generally apply to other property in the vicinity. C, because of these conditions, the application of the ordinance to the particular piece of property would effectively prohibit or unreasonably restrict the utilization of the property. And D, the authorization of a variance will not be a substantial detriment to adjacent property or to the public good, and the character of the district will not be harmed by the granting of the variance. Required by our ordinance to swear in those who intend to speak. So if you do intend to speak, please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? You'll signify by saying, I do.
I do.
Thank you. The first item on our agenda this evening, A1, is the approval of the minutes of the April 4, 2023 meeting. And we do have a copy of those minutes in the agenda packet. And so we had a couple who did not attend. Let's see, I was not in attendance, and Bill Goodwin was not in attendance, and Bill is not here this evening, so I'm the only one that can't vote. Do I hear a motion to approve the minutes?
Move for approval.
Mr. Bennett moves to approve. Mr. McKay seconds. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None are opposed. The motion passes. The minutes are approved unanimously by a vote of 5-0. Mr. Williams is chair, abstaining. Item number A2 on our agenda, 24 Gordon Street, Wagner Terrace, TMS number 463-11-04-059, zone SR2, requesting a special exception under section 54-110 to allow a horizontal expansion, kitchen expansion, family room deck, and vertical extension, master bedroom, closet, that extends a non-conforming 1.5 east side setback. 9 feet are required. The owners are Christine and Abraham Davitt. The applicant is Arwin Studio LLC, Patrick Orifice, Mr. Beckel.
So this is a residential property in Wagner Terrace. Has a house on the lot, and it's a 1.5 story house. The applicant is proposing to build an addition that would add a 2-story addition to the back of the existing house. So they've submitted their application with their explanation of what they want to do, the reasons they feel they meet the special exception requirements. And here is a existing survey of the property, and one thing you notice right away is that the house is located practically on the east side property line. So there's a roughly 1 foot setback from that east side property line to the rear corner of the existing house. And so that is a 1.5 foot setback. So that is the basis for the special exception, because the zoning district that applies to the property requires a 9 foot side setback. But this is typical of Wagner Terrace. Homes usually are set close to, if not on, a side property line. And so any addition to the back of the property that extends that footprint typically would require board approval. And that is the case with this application. So here you see, this is the existing house up front. There's a small little porch addition up front that would also require the special exception. But the main part of this application involves a large rear addition shown here. Right now, this house is 1.5 story house, 1,288 square feet in size. And the proposal is to go to a 2-story house, 1.5 in front, but then it gets to 2 stories in the back, and 3,042 square feet of total floor area. So it's a pretty substantial addition to this house. I'm going to skip through these floor plans because they're hard to read. Go right to the elevations. These are the existing elevations of this house. And the other thing I'll point out is that this existing brick chimney over here, which actually partly encroaches onto the side property, onto the adjoining property on that side, that's going to be removed with the changes to this house. And I'll also note that the other thing you'll notice is that they are proposing to elevate this house. They have to bring it up to the FEMA flood zone requirements, plus the 1 foot freeboard requirement of the city. And so they have to elevate several feet. So to do that is a substantial improvement to this property. And these are the proposed elevations. The front elevation is shown right here. See the 2-story, the top of the gable roof of the second floor addition back right here, peeking above the existing gable roof. And the side elevation shown here. This is the side that satisfies the zoning setback requirements. This is the side view for the other side, which is the side that meets the special exception for the encroachment to the setback. So you see it's a pretty substantial change. This is actually a decrease from the overall square footage that was proposed in the initial application, which we expressed concerns about. And so they've downsized it a little bit, but it's still pretty substantial. And the other thing I'll note about this is that the city extended the VAR well, let me back up. The BAR had jurisdiction over demolitions, outright demolitions of buildings in this part of the city up until probably 2016, 2017, somewhere in there. And then the rules were changed so that the BAR was given the authority over the demolition of any exterior features on the building. So before, you had to request a total demolition of the building in order to require BAR approval. So you can make substantial changes to these houses without going before the board. After changes took effect in about 2017, the BAR increased their authority up here so that replacing windows, for instance, required their approval. Siding, altering the roof, that sort of thing. And so the original request that this applicant submitted was to take this 1.5-story house and make it a 2-story house with a rear addition. And that was denied by the Board of Architectural Review. They would not permit the roof form of this house to be altered in that way. So that caused the applicant to then revise their plans and seek a different option. I don't think this option has actually received the BAR's approval, because as you can see, they'll be altering the roof form back here, but they, I believe, have talked to the staff of the board and feel like the staff will be supportive when this goes before the actual board. But that's why we're getting these kinds of additions in the back of the existing homes. So this is the request that's before you tonight, and the applicant and this has been on in front of us for a while. It's been deferred from previous applications or previous agendas. And we were asking the applicant to contact the most impacted neighbor at 22 Gordon Street. And they were attempting to do that. And I think they finally did connect with that owner. And that owner has responded just today or yesterday? Yesterday. It was yesterday, with an email that outlines the concerns that he had. But they also have support from other neighbors in the area. These are letters that indicate that these residents of 18 Gordon, 19 Gordon, 39 Gordon, 43 Gordon Street, 28 Gordon Street, 26 Gordon Street, Gordon, 35 Gordon. They support this request moving forward. Then we have the letter or the email that came in from Kevin Brown, who is the owner of 22 Gordon Street, the property that is immediately to the east of 24 Gordon, and the property that's most impacted by this proposal. And he says that his primary concern is drainage. And I'm not sure if he's present tonight, but drainage issues from the new construction affecting his property. And he also has a request that the damaged wall between the two properties be replaced, repaired as soon as possible. Furthermore, he would like to see the fireplace that encroaches onto his property removed, and ask that the concrete driveway be replaced or stabilized. So I think they've addressed the issue about the removal of the fireplace chimney. That will be part of their proposed improvements. And the applicant, we don't have that in here, I don't think, but the applicant does have a response to the drainage issue, and I'll let them present that to the board. Did not involve the addition of a gutter on that side of the gable roof that would shed water in the direction of 22 Gordon. So that was a question that I had for the applicant to respond to. And then we also received a letter from the president of the Wagner Terrace Neighborhood Association, and that came in yesterday. And the letter states that, and I don't know if this was in your packet or not. It was not. Okay, so it came in late. The Wagner Terrace Neighborhood Association conducted a hybrid public meeting on Monday, April 17, 2023, where we discussed the homeowner's request to allow horizontal expansion that extends a non-conforming setback at 24 Gordon Street. To be clear, the homeowner of 24 Gordon was not present, nor was there any representation on behalf of the owner present at the meeting. With a quorum present, the Wagner Terrace Neighborhood Association members unanimously opposed the request at 24 Gordon Street. We welcome the homeowner of 24 Gordon Street or their representative to attend our next neighborhood meeting to discuss their plans. And this is submitted by Peter. I'm not sure what his last name is, and I don't want to necessarily magic, I'll say. He is the president of the Wagner Terrace Neighborhood Association. So that was our final piece of correspondence on this. And then I think these photographs were submitted by the applicant as well. So we're concerned about the impact of the addition on the neighboring property. But if they're able to address that concern about drainage, then I think they would satisfy the neighbor's main concern, and probably the main concern that we have. The size of the addition is a little bit of an eye-opener, but it has been reduced from the initial application significantly. So I think that's a step in the right direction. So if they're able to address the concern about drainage, then I think they've satisfied our concern. I do also have a concern about the neighborhood association, and perhaps it would be best to defer this application to give the applicant a chance to speak with that association. And I say that not because I think that these kinds of applications are necessarily neighborhood association issues, but with the interplay of BAR rules up in this neighborhood and the impact that that's creating on us with these large rear additions, to get around the issues of the BAR, I think that's an issue probably for the neighborhood to take a closer look at. There are many one-story homes and 1.5-story homes in Wagner Terrace, and I think with the change in property values that we have in Charleston, people are going to want to try and add to those small homes and make them larger and stay in those homes longer, families and such, than maybe they would otherwise want to do. And so I think this is an issue or something that we're going to see a lot more of in that neighborhood coming years. So.
All right, so does the city recommends deferral at this time?
Well, I think that probably would be a wise move, but I don't know if the applicant's here. I suppose they're here, so they can.
Would you mind putting that letter up again from the Wagner Terrace Builders Association? And I don't think that they stated any reason for their opposition. They simply stated that they opposed it. And I'm not quite sure what a hybrid public meeting is, but maybe WTNA educate me on that. Okay, do we have the owner or applicant here? I think I saw Mr. Ortiz. Yes. Is there anybody here who's opposed to this application? If you're opposed to it, please raise your hand. Mr. Ortiz.
This is Owen Studio. I'm the applicant on behalf of the homeowner. Thank you, Mr. Dodgeller. I appreciate the overview given on the project itself. I won't have to go far into what the proposed addition is. I think you all understand that. We are requesting the flooding is a big issue, so we do want to make sure we're raising that house up to meet the standards. And as you said, there's families in this neighborhood. This is one of them, growing family in Wagner Terrace. They can afford to add on, they can't afford to buy a new expensive home. So they're just looking to expand, get that space for their growing family. A couple of kids, they both also work from home. So now with that type of model, we're needing a little bit more space in some of our home space. We have been reaching out to as many neighbors as possible. The neighborhood association meeting took place last night. We had no idea that we were on the agenda. Obviously, we would have attended if we did. We got that letter this morning. Thank you, Penny, for sending that over. My concerns were similar to yours. They didn't say they didn't like what project or the application. I don't even know what drawings they were looking at. As you had mentioned, we were on a previous TAR agenda with a different type of design. For all we know, they could have been looking at drawings of different design completely. With the VAR, we have gone before the VAR. We do have all of our approvals except for that little back section of roof where we're connecting on that 1.5 story area. We have approval to remove the foundation. We have approval to remove the blue, brick blue on the side. We have approval for vinyl siding and vinyl windows as necessary. So we have gone through that process. We do have the submittal in for the backside of that roof. We're just waiting for approvals. As Mr. Dodgeller pointed out, we do have the support of all of the neighbors in the immediate area. I think there are about 10 of them, with the exception of Mr. Brown, who we've been continuously reaching out to. The last time we were on the agenda, that was one of the items that came up. Have had some success within the last week. I've had a couple of conversations with the also related concerns. We had a small discussion. He was able to send in that email on Sunday, stating that in writing, and we did submit a document up there addressing all of those concerns. Like you said, one, I did leave out the gutter in that response. We're happy to put on a gutter on that side. The rest of it, the rest of the drainage concerns will be handled more on a site surface grading. So what we plan to do is, now that we're raising the house, we're going to regrade underneath the crawl space. So everything will grade, will slope away from the top base 22 boarding and away from top base 26 boarding, creating a small little swale down the driveway. That will take everything out. We are investigating the cost and the likelihood of French drain around the entire house, which will help, but with the amount of flooding that happens in this area, it's likely just get filled up very quickly. But it could help some of the overall condition. You're reaching out to the neighborhood association, trying to work on what they're doing. I guess I do have concerns about whether they submitted with no representation from us, knowing that it was on the agenda. have been really making an effort to try to address any concerns that have come up with the board. We'll continue. We absolutely have to. So, we will forward. We think that the design works. We think that the space that we're getting is what they need. From one point where you set the addition will result in the newest design, the submitted drawing was 27.
Total.
2,700.
And that is on. And I also started design with some other houses in the immediate Gordon Street area. So hopefully,
All right, thank you, Mr. Orvis. Is Mr. Brown, anybody else here in favor of the application? All right, is Mr. Kevin Brown, who owns 24 Gordon Street, is he here in attendance? Anybody from the Wagner Terrace Neighborhood Association? Anybody have any questions for the city, questions for the applicant?
I just kind of, maybe sort of two, they're kind of related. Did he have a position on sort of the height? And I'm not necessarily concerned as much about the mean height as much as the ridge total height and its visibility from the street. And I'm kind of thinking about it from the context of impacting character of the neighborhood. If you're on the sidewalk in front and you can see that rear addition from the front, it's a concern about that impact, that visual impact. Yeah, and I'd like to hear from you on that, if you don't mind.
so I don't know if you guys can read the height here, but sidewalks marked here at 0. So this first floor level, meeting the flood requirements, is at 5.5. Let's assume the average person eye level is about 5.5. So the sidewalk is right here, the stairs are right down to the sidewalk. My view is that.
Sure, and I bear with me. I was actually thinking from the opposite sidewalk. As you cross.
Kind of in this angle.
Yeah.
So you'd see it. I'm not saying you're not going to see it, but I do think it's visually minimally impactful. Because of the view angles, it's so far back, it's hitting back there. It goes up at the existing rear side of the wall. I'm not pulling it any further than what that wall already is. For the most part, I think the large majority is
I'm done. Thank you.
Mr. Morris.
Lee, setting aside the neighborhood association's letter and assuming the cure of the next door neighbor's issues, would the city recommend a special exception or not?
Well, I think that was a good point raised, Mr. Bennett. I'm wondering if the applicant, what about decreasing the pitch of the roof on the back section so it matches this small section of roof right here? So in other words, instead of being as tall as you're showing here, what if you decrease the pitch and it was more, the ridge was more scary right here? Would that be possible?
Yeah, I think that's possible. The current pitch of this roof matches the pitch of this roof. And with the BAR, we have to keep the existing edge here. Right. So just for some comparability there, we have made it the same. I don't think the homeowner would have any problem. I don't have any problem with decreasing that roof pitch. I believe it's a 5 and 12 right now. It might be 6 and 12. And this is, I think, a 3 and 12. So 3 and 12 gets a little bit low in most instances, but it is still doable with an asphalt shingle roof. And we can definitely look at that. Just we could potentially even bring the height down 6 inches or so. keep height down 6 inches below. Sure, if that was next to a condition of you.
I think that would help
And
personally.
isn't this the one where you came a few weeks ago and were other next door neighbor all over the world and he wouldn't respond? And we told Mr. Orifice then, if you got the next door neighbor, chased him down and got his approval, we would approve it. And I hate to bring him back again, frankly. I think they've been working really hard. I'd make a motion based on what Mr. Orifice just represented, that they can make that change, address the drainage problems as he's proposed, improve this with those conditions. I don't put any stock in this late letter from the HOA, from the neighborhood association that doesn't give a single reason for their thinking. I don't have any sympathy with that. They just all say, we don't like this. They don't say why. All these other neighbors closer prove it. I don't see why we would send him back to ask them to have a better meeting and explain their thinking.
Right and correct. I felt like we did. I'm so grateful for all they have done a lot of work trying to reach everybody, but I thought that we did ask them to go to the Wagner Terrace.
Did we? Okay.
I'm not 100% sure, but I thought that we
We
did.
could have. I'm glad they had a vote, but I don't know what we're supposed to do with a vote that doesn't explain anything. I don't know what he's supposed to do. That we were supposed
I
to do.
digress. We did discuss it. It was recommended,
Mhm.
and I talked to the homeowner. Our initial plan was to be on the last meeting with the meeting deferral. We ended up missing that to address some other concerns. We started to have a little bit more luck with the neighbor. So we ended up not getting on the agenda, and then they just discussed it last night. Drawings, and a couple listing or somewhere else, but we were never contacted with the homeowner. Happy to go to the next one, discuss the design a little bit further, but if at all possible, to get the approval tonight and some conditions in my proper design.
All right, Mr. Morrison has a motion to approve. I'm happy to entertain more discussion, but the motion to approve is with a condition. And Lee, could you help us state that condition, please?
That would be a condition to reduce the pitch of the roof, match the hyphen section.
As you and Mr. Orifice discussed,
Right.
and to address the drainage concerns as he's proposed for the next door neighbors. Those would be the two conditions.
I have one question though, before we jump into this. And I apologize for pulling my phone out, looking at the meeting, it's kind of rude. But I was going through the county stuff. For some reason, I was thinking it's BFE +2. I was looking at your drawings and it's BFE +1 or DFE. And so I just was kind of pulling it up. And have you checked to see if you've got the right elevation for lifting the house?
With an existing building and historic area, it only allows
Okay. that makes
FEMA allows you to do 1 foot, but with the historic structures downtown, they only allow you to do.
Okay. Well, very good. So that's 1 foot above FEMA, so he gets his FEMA up, he gets his certificate. Okay, great. I just didn't want you to, let's do all this discussion, then come back and say it's gotta be. Okay, great.
And Mr. Orifice, before you sit down, we have a couple of other conditions or a couple other thoughts, at least, that Kevin Brown identified in his email. He said, number one, proper drainage. You're not going to solve the neighborhood's drainage program at that issue at the property, okay? But you're going to construct whatever you're going to construct in accordance with the drainage plan as shown in the materials presented here this evening, right? Okay. And then you've got a question about a damaged concrete wall. Do you know anything about that? Is that
You don't have, yes, that wall sits directly equally on the property.
okay?
There's a tree next to it. It appears not to be a significant tree. resistance damage to the wall and it fell over during the storm. So part of that wall falls on Mr. Brown's property. So he's asking that it be repaired.
And what is your position on
A
that?
small section of it would have to be removed to allow it. We are happy to replace the wall in kind as it's 42 inches.
All right, and then I think I heard Mr. Batchelder say that chimney's gone, right?
Yeah, chimney's gone,
Okay.
they are approval for it.
And then the driveway, he says driveway replaced and stabilized. I understand that there's gonna be a new driveway there with the in accordance with the drainage
Yeah.
plan.
That letter that I sent yesterday, you can pull up the site plan. So it seems his major concern is, you know, you've got a driveway, paved concrete, you know, along the property of here to the rear wall. So we were gonna saw cut about 1.5 to 2 feet off of the face of that existing brick floor. We put it here, all the way down, saw cut his existing driveway to make sure there's no further damage during construction. Likelihood with us raising this house and pouring new foundations and everything, we're gonna be digging a little bit on his property and we recognize that, so we wanna make sure we aren't getting any damage. So if we saw cut that driveway, do all the construction work that needs to be done, we are happy to replace that section that we have to saw cut from that cut to the property line, and then repair any further damage that might happen during construction. We also have a note that heavy equipment, any other construction activity necessary for this operation will be included for it.
Okay. Is that identified in your letter may I see a copy of that, please? All right, Mr. Morrison, letter to you. I don't know if you've seen it. My suggestion perhaps if you're moving to approve with conditions would be the conditions could be number one, lower the pitch of the roof so that it meets the hyphen, is that what you said?
Yeah, to match the hyphen.
Okay, to match the hyphen pitch. And number two, that the terms set forth in that letter are adhered to by the applicant. As it does go point by point addressing Mr. Brown's email.
I don't know if it's drainage mentions the gutter, but I would want to include the gutter in all.
Is that?
Yes,
I'm just trying to
yes.
see if we can get it.
The addition of the gutter to the letter.
So you want to restate that motion so that, or is that good enough?
Good enough.
Okay, you're moving to approve with the conditions that number one, the roof of the pitch is lowered to meet the hyphen, be consistent with it. Number two, that the conditions and terms set forth in this April 17, 2023 letter are adhered to by the applicant with the addition of a gutter as proposed by the applicant. All right, so we got a motion on the table.
I'll second the motion.
All right, Mr. Bennett seconds the motion. Are we, I suppose we can go ahead and vote instead of calling for a voice vote. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, 2 are opposed, so we have, the motion passes. The special exception is granted by a vote of 4-2 with the conditions that were stated on the record. Mr. Morrison, Mr. Bennett, Mr. McKay, Mr. Tibbles vote in favor. Grass and Ms. Richards voted against. Thank you very much. All right, the next item on our agenda is A3, 430 Meeting Street on the east side, TMS number 459-09-01-034. Zone GB requesting a special exception under section 54-206Y to to allow a late-night use restaurant and bar within 500 feet of a residentially zoned district. The owner is 430 Meeting Street LLC. The applicant is Erica B. Harrison. Mr. Batchelder, when you are finished passing out our material, we'd love to hear from the city. Thank you, sir.
This application concerns a business called Bedford Falls at 430 Meeting Street. This is a restaurant bar use in a general business zoning district. Shown here on this zoning map, you see the red that runs along the east side of Meeting Street. That's the general business zoning district. And the brown area is a residential zoning district. That this property is located within the east side neighborhood, and they're requesting your approval to extend their hours of operation past midnight. So right now they operate until midnight, in accordance with the restrictions on the property, the zoning restrictions. In order to extend their hours past midnight, they need your approval for the late night use special exception. And that is a special exception that is outlined in subsection Y of 54206. The handout I gave you is that section of the code listing the special exception requirements for consider. So, run through this. This is a view from Meeting Street looking into the property. And they have all their required parking provided on site in this small parking area. And then you see in this aerial view, this is that parking area. This is the historic house right here. And then this is an addition that was constructed for a restaurant 2015, 2014. And then in 2020, I think it was 2020 or 2021, the current owner purchased the property and opened his business here. So this is the application material that was submitted with the application and their response to the special exception requirements. And I'll say right off the bat that I think all of this discussion boils down to number 5, special exception of the special exception requirements. And that exception deals with parking, whether the operation of the establishment will not be a substantial detriment to parking in adjoining residential districts, zoning districts. The other criteria, numbers 1 through 4, I think are addressed by the current operations: garbage, recycling, maintenance, equipment, and so on and so forth. Storage areas for these things. That's all existing, been in use for a number of years, and I think they've satisfied those requirements. Location of garbage and recycling pickup is safe. Again, they've been doing that. I'm not aware of any issues with that, so I think they've met that requirement. 4, measures have been incorporated into the structure to address adverse impacts of noise to properties in the residential zoning district. They indicate that they have placed a soundproof barrier in the building. They're not a use that generates a lot of noise in their operations. So I think they've addressed that issue, although certainly late night uses can be a noise generator depending on how they're operated. And so that may be something to consider whether when you're evaluating this proposal. But number 5 concerns the operation of the establishment and whether there will be a substantial detriment to parking in adjoining residential districts. And that's the one that I think we have to talk about a little bit more. 6 concerns whether there's a heavy concentration of late night uses. And as I'll show you in a subsequent slide, there's really no heavy concentration of those uses in this area. King Street, yes, there are heavy concentrations on King Street, but not in the Meeting Street area. So, so here are some slides that the applicant has provided. See the site here, east side of Meeting Street. This is the area within 500 feet of the property, and circle. This is the site plan for the property. Photographs, more photographs of surrounding properties. Intersection of Meeting and Wolf, 441 Meeting Street. Other properties in the area. And this is a site plan and floor plan. You see the parking spaces. You see the indoor patron area. And they changed the floor plan when they purchased it from what the restaurant had. And may have actually decreased the patron area a little bit when they added this bar into this space. And then they've got this, what was originally outdoor dining space is shown now as indoor dining space. The parking requirements are roughly the same, so they have not exceeded what they're allowed to do on site, and parking that is available. So the second floor of that historic building is not used for patron area as well. So this is the site plan that illustrates the area to be considered for whether this is a heavy concentration of late night uses, and there really are no other late night uses that I'm aware of within this shaded area. Said not many late night uses on Meeting Street. There are a couple further up the street on the east side of Meeting Street, but that's about it. King Street has many late night uses. Meeting Street doesn't have many. And more information, I'll let the applicant mention these things if they want. This is the certificate of occupancy that was issued for the business when they opened in December of 2021. And they have an occupant load of 65 people set by the building code. And then I'll let the applicant go through those. So those are the slides. I'll go back to this image right here. So they're allowed to operate until midnight. They can't operate beyond midnight without your approval. They can get your approval, they would be allowed to operate till 2 a.m. when the city requires all establishments that sell alcohol to close. And I think the problem with this location is that it is right at the entrance to a neighborhood. It is adjoining residential properties. It's next door to Wolf Street, which provides access directly into the neighborhood. And it's a street that provides on-street parking. Nassau provides on-street parking. So even though the site provides parking for patrons, I can't help but believe that there's some impact from patrons of this establishment going into the neighborhood to find parking spaces. And if we're talking about a use that closes at midnight versus a use that closes at perhaps 2 a.m., that seems to be an impact that would get worse for the neighbors, create problems for the neighbors and quality of life issues for them. So my concern with this is that item number 5, the operation of the establishment, will be a substantial detriment to parking in adjoining residential zoning districts. And for that reason, I'm not willing to support the
All right, thank you, Lee. So the city is opposing this request for the special exception of 430 Meeting Street. Anybody here to oppose the application? If you are, just raise your hand. Thank you. We'll hear from you in a moment. Now I'd like to hear from the owner or applicant, please.
My name is Erica Harrison, and I represent Bedford Falls, who did contact with his brother, who purchased this property back in 2021. They first came to the Board of Zoning and Appeals with this application for an extension of the late night, for an extension of hours. That application was withdrawn, and so they've been in operation for over a year at this particular site. They actually own it. They live here in Charleston. They do operate another location in New York, but this is where they call home. And they became more and more familiar with the neighborhood. As Lee has indicated, the special exception test is vastly different from a variance test. There isn't a demonstration of hardship, but essentially we meet the requirements of that test. And we would disagree that with the proposition that parking is an issue into the neighborhood. I will go through the parts of the test as it is, so that we can make sure that the public itself understands how we have met it, even though we have gone through that thoroughly for us. But one thing is clear is that the first 3 categories of this special exception test deals with what I call the noxious categories. It deals with odors from garbage, recycling, maintenance, and how that is concealed. And I think Lee's got some photos that I kind of wanted to just go through. So,
Ms. Harrison, I don't want to cut you off, but the city's not opposing that.
no,
I mean, we got a lot of people here with limited time. Why don't we talk about the matters that might be
well, and
substantial?
yes, we'll get to the parking part, which deals essentially with quality of life issues. So getting to the parking issue, as you see, that's their particular location, their lot. And I think the last 2 slides are the ones that I would like to present their image. Yes, that one right there. So you can't really I was hoping that you'd be able to see it more clearly, but those are 57 people who have signed letters of support for this application. Essentially, that's 57 people, which equals is almost equivalent to our 65 occupants. And what you see in purple are those individuals that have said, I am in support of that, which means that this is essentially what we've always considered to be a hyper-local neighborhood restaurant. We have residents that come from the apartment buildings, the multifamily buildings, but we also have residents who are already currently living in the neighborhood itself. So no one would be walking no more than 4 or 5 blocks to this particular location. It's not a destination restaurant. And so what you have are people, is really truly what you want is basically a neighborhood friendly restaurant. This isn't necessarily a bar that you would see people standing outside of. This is essentially the kind of place that, for lack of a better option, it's where you would go with your wife, your kids. It's where you would go if you had a late night in the office. Because there aren't that many options in the neighborhood that serve meals past 12 a.m. And to that extent that the reason why we presented the menu options is because we felt as though it was important to show that this is basically a family-oriented, walking type of restaurant that really relies upon pedestrians. Additionally, what they've noticed as operators is that multifamily buildings, especially the limited, and I think some of the other hotels, they don't have options that extend past that 12 a.m. hour. And people have been asking, are you open? And they haven't been able to say that because of the requirement that has been placed on it. And Lee, if you can kind of go to the next slide. So one of the other issues too is about dealing with the parking is that we've identified 3 other locations that are basically private metered parking spaces that are within a 400 radius of Bedford Falls. But also what I want to point out was how is the intrusion onto the neighborhood. So in blue, what I show is if someone was to turn onto Wolf Street and not see any parking, what they would immediately have to do is they hit the intersection of Nassau Street, Nassau being one way, you would have to do what is essentially the green if you turn right onto Nassau because it is a one-way street. And you have to circle all the way back around to Meeting and then go back up and do exactly what we would have already suggested, which is park at either Better or one of the other options in here. But if you opted not to do that, if you didn't turn right onto Nassau, you would travel further up, and you would have to either turn down Hanover and circle back to go back down Nassau, but you would enter onto the Better parking lot from the rear of Nassau Street. So what you see is the option is that you're still never going to really be inside of this neighborhood because of the proximity to where you want to be is right on Meeting Street. So your option for parking is closest to park on Meeting Street rather than go into the neighborhood itself. And so you're entirely in the opposite direction rather than being further into the neighborhood and impacting the parking. So I understand that there are people who are opposed. My understanding was, we knew of, at the time when we deferred, we knew of there were 3 particular locations. But in essence, we have demonstrated that parking isn't an issue because number 1, we provide the parking that's on site. Number 2, there's ample amounts of opportunities to park in metered spaces. But in addition to that, we know that 2 a.m. is kind of that hour that people is the influx of the pressure point of what happens to a neighborhood. And so we've also talked to Lee about this, which is offering to extend our hours to just 1 a.m. In order to relieve that pressure as a condition of that. And so with the fact that there's only our occupancy is only 65 people, the limitation on that, we're not a type of restaurant or at least that requires lines out the door. It's not a nightclub. It's where you go grab your hamburger when you're wanting to watch the game. So we believe that we do meet that test based on the options that are available, and the fact that routing of the traffic would naturally occur on Union Street, and we have support of other neighbors, more than 65 people that would fit into this area. So with that being said,
happy to answer.
We may yet, Ms. Harrison, thank you very much for your presentation. I will note that I did see a large number of hands go up in opposition. I'm sure we have folks in support as well. I remind everyone that under Article 4 of our hearing procedures, the presentation by the applicant should be limited to 10 minutes. The presentation by opponents should be limited to 10 minutes. I'm not going to hold you all collectively to 10 minutes aside. I want everybody to be able to express their opinions on this issue that feel like they need to express them, but I also ask that you be mindful of these time restrictions with the idea that our time is somewhat limited and valuable, and I think I see Mr. Bailey there, and I'm not sure if 10 minutes is enough for him personally. So we do want to hear from you, so we are going to hear next from anyone else who is in support of the application, and if you are, please come up and state your name and address and explain why you're in support of the application. Thank you. Yes, sir. Thank you, Mrs. Harrison.
Hey guys, how we doing? Me again. Yeah, I don't have much of a written statement. I can't really
State your name, please.
My name's Brendan Kirkpatrick, 430 Meeting Street, at Falls. Anyway, we got a neighborhood local, we're coming from New York. Can't really help where we're coming from. This is where we're at here. Look at our spot in 2021. It's a neighborhood local. It's family friendly. Pride ourselves with the pub atmosphere, getting to know family members, neighbors alike, tourists, what have you. First and foremost, we are a neighborhood spot. We're not on pump, we're not a roadside bar. We don't have jerseys on the wall, black and white photos, amber lighting, hastily placed televisions. Posted Courier just recently said that we serve elevated bar food, elevated pub food there. That's reserved as described as a reserved neighborhood pub. Our staff, our kitchen staff currently, they were formerly of Five Church and Union. We were fortunate that when they changed over to take a lot of that staff over there. What we're serving is fresh food, it's not grease. Our freezer is very small. We're gonna do a late night menu. Again, it's not gonna be grease, it's gonna be something where tourists, airline pilots, flight attendants, a little bit of everybody. I don't know many places in my neighborhood that actually serves past 10 in the food department. I think this is a necessity, especially when I'm requesting. I don't promote binge drinking or rowdiness. If you're a lady or a gentleman, you're allowed to stay as long as you want. Don't have time. I don't have money for insurance for all the garbage of rowdiness and what have you. Where I'm coming from, I'm 20,000 students, one block away at Hunter College. The largest, loudest venue on King Street is within my district. It's 8 blocks north of me. Those 20,000 kids don't go to my spot. They don't go there. I'm 1 block away. I got Sloan Kettering, I got Cornell, I got a little bit of everybody. And neighborhood is eccentric. It's everything to us. Staff, we introduce ourselves to everybody. We make sure everybody has alcohol awareness courses upon 30 days of employment. That's not instituted by my insurance. That's instituted by my family. We take this very seriously. I'm a little loud. I'm very passionate here because character assassination is going to come my way. You guys have letters of recommendation from previous precincts, from and then our current one here in Charleston of no instances. 2 St. Patrick's Days, 2 bridge runs, 2 New Year's Eves, nothing. Not an act of violence, no noise complaints. I have 6 spots on location. I met those requirements. There are over 220 meter spots within 400 feet of me. Like, I have to live around you guys. I'm not here to provoke you guys or be a problem or anything. I never have. I've had a great relationship with my prior neighborhood. I love those guys. They're my second family. 13.5 hours a day. That includes Christmas. Guys happen to just want to blow up some steam. My mom and dad make some nice pies. My brother makes some egg off. Just go try and head shop at your expense. 120. You know what? We just knock it down to 60. That's already worked. All I can just tell you is our family, you got one name in this world. Her God's name, it means a lot to us. We told the neighbor community board, we told the neighbors, tell everybody here, we won't embarrass you, we won't embarrass the city. We will, I have 2 operations within 700 miles from your house. I have the same results. Just one day before I am. One's over for midnight. I think I said my piece. God bless.
Thank you, Mr. Kirkpatrick. All right, anybody else who's here to speak in favor of the application?
My name is Taisha Branch. I am the newly elected president of the Eastside Community Development Corporation. I have served on the board since Sheila Keels was president. We just started, we did our transition as of March 31st. But I've served as a newly president during the year 2012, and we worked closely with you all when it came to projects. We have a planning committee at that time. I sent an email stating that we are going to reorganize our planning committee. But today, I'm here to support Mr. Kirkpatrick. What I can say about BZA-Z, I cannot change my race. I am an African-American female. I am the president and CEO of that organization. I cannot change my board. My board is predominantly African-American, but we go by our bylaws. The people who are standing here in opposition, I have not seen them at our community meeting. So when it comes to deciding on very rude and disruptive, we have to set our meetings. Very rude, laughing, distracting. It's just, it's strange, it's disturbing. As I said, I don't know what the community, other than the people who attend our meetings, want, because they don't want to come to our meetings because they want change now. That takes time. What I can change is, I can change trying to help with safety, which Mr. Kirkpatrick is trying to do. We did our research. The police department does not have any kind of concerns or anything, complaints about his establishment. I am trying to change diversity. Yes, we're gentrifying on our community. Those things take time. I am trying to change opportunities for my families, for them to see different. But like I said, these people who are standing up, I don't see them. I see a couple of them at my meetings, a couple. They stop coming because they feel we should have a diverse board. We go by the bylaws just like everybody else. Your board is diverse. You consider it diverse, right? Is your board diverse?
I'm not here to
And
answer
I
your
know, and I
questions.
understand that, but I'm very, like he said, I'm passionate, and this is hurtful. This is an everyday battle with my community. We're trying to accept the changes, we're trying to work, but we want them to work with us. I am truly in support of Mr. Kirkpatrick. He helps feed my students and my families when we don't have food at the school. I work at the school. When I need food for my families who can't eat, I can call him and he will send a meal. And ask that you think about, yes, parking. That's a problem everywhere. Every time somebody comes to us, their concern is parking. But I ask that you search in your heart and you do the right thing and do what's best for all people. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Gray. Anybody else in favor? We're still in favor of the application. Yes, sir. Please state your name.
So maybe watching on the BZA-Z, go up by the citizen in the neighborhood, I live on the street. This is a village. This is a village here. My grandmother had a house in Hanson, Network. Okay, this is the village. What do we have to do there? All you do is take time to watch everybody else's business for his own. Okay, to go out by good people. These people don't have no problem at this restaurant. Bedford Falls never had a police come in there, riding down. What do we have to do? He's the John Gotti in Charleston. But we ain't doing it his way, it ain't gonna happen. Do you think somebody, I mean, no, he just, these people, he's got a family and a business, okay? What if the shoe was on the other feet, somebody said, this is a college town. If you can't stand and go somewhere to John's Island, in the house in the woods, if you can't stand, when you came on American Street, there wasn't no parking. Flavor parking, these people help, Franklin better help with the parking, sir. Several different places, they got parking meters. All right? Mr. Bailey.
Let's stay on the parking.
Okay,
Let's not-
35 Hanover Street, there's an overflow bar right there, and right around the corner from Mr. Bailey. Why do you hassle these people? 35 Hanover Street is a overflow there. Okay, Mr. Bailey, all the drug people on this block, why are he gonna approach them? You afraid of them? But he's gonna mess with them. I'm a citizen that's feeding people a green atmosphere. You understand? What do we gotta do for Mr. Bill? He wanted God, hey, come on, you got to let it go.
All right,
Rest.
let's try to focus on the issue here and not on any individuals. And let's try to, I understand that there are emotions here, and I understand that everybody is trying to live in a neighborhood and be neighborly. And so let's be neighborly as we discuss these issues tonight. Let's not try to single anybody out, and let's also try to focus on the issue. And as I learned a long time ago in the legal profession, you can disagree without being disagreeable. So let's try to do that as we continue. Thank you. Please state your name.
Good evening, everyone. Sarah Daniels. I reside at 502 Meeting Street in downtown Charleston. And I am here to support the extension of hours for Bedford Falls. I was one of the original persons on the late night committee. So I was one of those persons who helped establish the guidelines for why we're here this evening. And I am also, I am the first person who is the example of having such an establishment in a residential community. Because right adjacent to my address, 502 Meeting Street, is 504, which is the Commodore. So I am the example of what our committee worked so hard to try to establish. Now, I will tell you with that, there have been a lot of obstacles, okay? Because there are really no guidelines set for how to handle when there is not a meeting of the minds between a resident and a business owner. We failed on that level as the organization that was established to address this issue and bring guidelines. We failed in that. So with that being said, I appreciate the fact that we're all here tonight. And I take this very seriously because I know how it's impacted me and my family. What I've taken the time to do is drive by Bedford Falls. I've taken the time to do a little bit of research to see what's going on with that business. And they're right. There have been no complaints in reference to that business in terms of any type of violence that's broken out, and any type of noise ordinances that's broken out. I cannot say the very same for what I am enjoying consistently for the past, I don't know how many years, because I consistently call the policemen on the nightclub of the Commodore weekly because of a noise violation. I consistently have people that vomit in my yard that intrude on my property, even though I have signs posted consistently. I don't see this when I drive through the neighborhood. Once we received the letter from Bedford Falls requesting the extension for the hours, I took a personal look at what's going on, because I understand, as a person who's enduring it, the impact it would have on residents that are adjacent to that building. I don't see lines and crowds of people outside that establishment. If you drive down Meeting Street past 502 to 504, you will see lines of people outside of that establishment on both sides, down Meeting Street as well as down Shepherd Street. If you circle the block from Meeting Street and turn onto Shepherd Street, you will see crowds of cars that don't belong to the residences in that area. If you drive down Meeting Street at 12:30 at night, you will hear amplified music playing from the Commodore. Those things aren't being done at Bedford Falls. I take this seriously. I am not going to stand up here in support of a business that would negatively impact the community, because I know what I endure on a consistent basis. And for that, I take it very seriously. I appreciate the fact that he has established a sound barrier wall to prevent the noise. I appreciate the fact that there is no amplified music. I appreciate the fact that there are no police officers that are being called to his establishment. I appreciate the fact that he took the time to come to our neighborhood organization, that we sat down with him, and I personally explained all of these issues that I'm addressing with you all. I explained this to Mr. Kirkpatrick, and made him aware that if these things were not standing, if these things were not met, I would be sitting with those who are opposing him on tonight. But I have no opposition, because he has done what he is supposed to do. I have no opposition because I can take my family and friends to his establishment and feel that they are safe there. He doesn't have to worry about someone who rips his gate apart like I did, because they're so inebriated that they're out of control. So I know that parking is an issue, but parking is an issue that we have to address everywhere. From Charleston to Mount Pleasant, to downtown, to the north area. I don't care what city. When we did the research as a late night committee, we understood that parking was going to be a challenge everywhere. And we're trying as a society, as a community, to come up with resolutions to this problem. But we're growing as a world. And so as we grow as a world, there are some problems that we're not going to find immediate resolutions to. But the issues that are being brought forth around Bedford Falls tonight, I really don't consider those to be real issues that need to be addressed, and that would prevent an establishment that's proven itself for this period of time, that has the approval of our police officers, who I went around with on King Street when we did this as a late night committee. We rode in police cruisers and we saw firsthand what our police department dealt with and deals with consistently. I don't see those issues here. So I hope that the issue tonight, I hope what we're addressing tonight is truly a passion, that this business is truly impacting the neighborhood negatively, and that we don't want to see the dreams and the vision of someone go and be cast down because of our own personal dislikes and whatever we may have. Let it be truthful in what we're saying and what we're doing. Give the truth to this committee who sits here to make a decision in reference to the livelihood of others. Let it be that it's truthful. Let it be that it's truly negatively impacting you, because if it isn't, I welcome any of you to come sit on my porch with me at night. I welcome any of you to stand in my, any of you to drive by my residence at night. Or I welcome any of you to pull the police reports that I call nightly on Friday from Sunday to Sunday night. And if they're imposing in a manner that I'm being imposed on, then you tell me, because then I will step away from this podium and I will cross the line and I will oppose this business wholeheartedly. Thank you all so very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Sir, we're still speaking in favor of the application. Please identify yourself.
Board member, BZA-Z. Looking at this map, and I'm talking about what's happening in the issue. Just like what Harrison said, Nassau Street is one way coming back down, all right? Hey, the parking that wasn't packing our community to the east side is coming from King Street. Now they got King Street, you can't park on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So what they're doing, they're pushing the car over into the east side. That's what's really going on. That's why we got the biggest problem in our neighborhood with parking. And not just only Reed and Nassau Street. Let's go back down to John Street and Mary Street, Reed Street, Wood Street, Columbus Street, 9th Street, Nassau Street. As far as Lee Street, they park it all in the community. Sometimes cars be sitting for 2 to 3 days. You know why? But they forget where they park their car at. The students forget where they park their car at. They come in and park the car and walk back out. Now, and I got to go along with what Ms. Daniels just said this time. Was the kid practice there? No problem. And anybody that know me will let you know about if you wrong, you wrong. And I will not support and endorse no one is wrong. But the area was established in that is really on Meeting Street, all right? Pretty close to the area where the city of Charleston called Entertainment District. Maybe less than 25 feet. Once you cross Meeting Street, you're in our neighborhood. Once you go on the opposite side of Meeting Street, you are in entertainment area zone. They're in too much guideline on it. That's why they got officers out there late night, not on Meeting Street. I haven't heard one time yet that there was a problem in this establishment. Not one time yet. I heard it. I talked with Chief Reynolds. I work with the mayor. My job with the city of Charleston is community resource specialist quality of life. They don't know that. They think I'm a coach in the neighborhood. That's my job for the city. Community resource specialist quality of life. And if this were to put a quality on the resident in the neighborhood, I wouldn't support it. And I would have brought it back to the neighborhood council by serve on the board at. But the most important part of it is the family that lived on Reed Street, right behind this establishment. They ain't complaining. I have no complaint. So why someone all the way down Hanover Street and Nassau Street, a block away from the establishment, got so much to complain, and the person up right next door to it don't have a complaint. Like I said, are we gonna be honest? Let's be honest. Let's take the personal bandana out of it and let's be honest. Are we gonna allow King Street to establish into 2, and he was kind of going back down to 1? That's good. That's negotiable. I mean, but this man, he's trying to negotiate, he's trying to make money. The man got to make it look. All right. Seriously, right around the corner on Hanover Street. Like he said, 25, 35, I think it was. We got establishment 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. I got residents living there. These people are dumping trash can and big water, waking up my seniors in the neighborhood. They ain't complaining about that. Those are the issues. Those are the key issues that are disturbing the community. This place, this example on Meeting Street, is not disturbing the community at all. It's right on the street front. Traffic on those 2 streets is just moving constantly all the time. You know, so again, I wish they could search themselves and search their heart. And they're trying to do right by this accepting we're trying to move forward and let's take all of these personal bandanas because again, I know there's a guard sitting high and he's looking real low. You know, so again, I wish to take it under consideration. You know, and we got problems. We got stores on the corner, all right? I fight this every day. We got stores on the corner selling no 10 and 11-year-olds can buy blunt, can buy cigarettes, and all this other stuff. Nobody protesting that. Nobody against that. They let them go. And you got a man right there with a family, you know, a family-friendly business right there, going, just have needs, walk out, you know. I come through there all the time, ride through there all the time, just to see. I ride down King Street to see what the difference is. If I had a choice to bring my grandkids and go sit down and eat a burger, I would choose this spot. I would not want my 17 and under grandkids seeing how King Street look versus take them someplace that they can sit down and have a good meal. So again, what y'all take what we're saying as a community, again, we are the community, we are the voice of the community. And again, I would like to ask everyone from the BZA-Z on the board or members to please stand. Well, the member on the BZA-Z, please stand. And it's more, you don't got to get up and down. But we are here, we are the support, we are the voice of the community. And so the change was, but again, I want to thank y'all for taking the time to hear our concern. And again, we police y'all support this effort of extended hours, like he said, at least until 1 o'clock. He don't want to, he just said 1. I'm pretty sure y'all didn't say 1, right? He just said 1, so again, you ready to get out that way.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Appreciate it. Anybody else here in support? Yes, sir.
Very quickly, my name is John Sullivan. I have lived in Charleston for about 20 years. But the reason I'm here is I had a unique perspective because I actually lived above Bedford Falls in New York, my wife and I. And I just wanted to say, you know, I've heard a lot of the words community, family, things like that. Brendan and Brian truly are class acts. I never had an issue living directly above them, above the bar. And more importantly, if there was an issue, I know that they would address it. It would come to them, they would handle it, it would be resolved. And that's really all I have to say. They're great people. I'm happy to be here to represent them. And I think that they deserve to be open for this one. That's all.
Thank you, sir. Still in favor of the application? Yes, sir.
Mark Sapanero, 511 Meeting Street, and on behalf of Bedford Falls, because they really are great owners, neighborhood bar. Anybody who just saw Brandon today, it's the most upset I've seen him. Usually very kind and very calm. You guys are crushing his business, Colin. 1 or 2 hours seems small, but they're offering us small profits. Inflation, small business, trying to grow the community. Really is a neighborhood spot. People are walking there, they're taking Ubers. Parking is not an issue created by Bedford Falls. Additionally, they're really creating that neighborhood atmosphere vibe, bringing good people to the neighborhood. It's not for people going to King Street. It's people for young adults, families in the area, looking for a place and get a good meal, good drink, relax, and actually be able to talk on the chaos and overcrowdedness of King Street. So really these 2 hours make a huge difference to them. It's going to allow them the chance to survive and providing good service and not creating noise. I know it's in a residential area, but it's next to Hot Mustard, a gas station, a hotel. The only residence next to it is an Airbnb. They're all basically commercial properties in it is residential zones. They're not creating sound issues for residents, not creating traffic or parking issues, providing valuable service they deserve to be open till 1 or 2, preferably 2, because it allows them prime time hours to increase their profits in business. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else in favor of the application? Yes, sir. Come on up and please state your name for the record.
I'm Brett Bickle. I'm a local attorney in the area, and I live on Amherst Street, so just down the road. right in between 35 Hanover and Bedford Falls, basically. And I've, been to both establishments quite often. I enjoyed my time in places, and I have not seen any impact at all of parking or traffic from either place in the entire time that I've lived there. So I really don't see how staying open 2 hours later will impact parking any more so than it already has, and which it hasn't. So I really don't see there's really any issues involved at all.
Thank you, Mr. Bickle. Yes, sir.
Rice, live on 14 Lockwood Drive, so I don't live close, but I've gone to Bedford Falls probably 3 dozen times, maybe 4 dozen. I've driven there maybe twice. There's line bikes, there's Uber in this town, which clearly a lot of people do take. If you take into consideration the parking being an issue, many people prior to me have stated that it is an issue everywhere. It's not unique to Bedford Falls. They can't change everything. But really, when you take into consideration a community, is it safe, clean, and ethical? Clearly, the clean part is not an issue because that was tabled in favor of point number 5, being the parking. It is spotless in there. Is it safe? When my family comes to visit, when my friends come to visit, anybody, I take them to Bedford Falls. First place I take them. Is it ethical? I cannot vouch for any 2 business owners more than I can vouch for these 2. I've met their families, I've met their friends. That place is a family, it is a community. And if you haven't been, I highly recommend it. Reuben croquettes or hanger steak medium rare is my recommendation. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. All right, is there anyone else who is here to speak in favor of the application? Yes, sir, please state your name.
My name is Michael Ellis Baskins. The 2 biggest issues were parking and noise, correct? Let's see, when Bedford Falls originally opened in the winter of 2021, I believe I was living right here at 66 South. Since then, I now currently live 1 block north of that point. Was it Mr. Lee? Could you go back to the slide that had the purple marks for the letters? Let's see. And I now currently live, where does map? Right here at 102 National Street, Apartment A. I've been in Charleston a decade. I don't have a motor vehicle. I walk everywhere and I walk to Bedford Falls. One thing I will say about, being inside the restaurant is that you rarely see, cars coming in and out of the parking lot. I don't think there's a lot of motor vehicle traffic. It's also a very small parking lot. I'd be surprised if there are patrons that are, frequently, coming to the business that are parking in the neighborhood. As far as noise goes, I feel like the 1 o'clock closing time, it's not so bad. It could be a lot worse. I feel as if there's the Commodore that was previously mentioned, there's the Lucky Luchador, and I believe Last Saint, all have closing times at 2 in the morning. And those are all in about 3 or 4 blocks of Bedford Falls. I don't understand what makes this establishment any different. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. Others in support? Please state your name, sir.
My name is Ross McLean. I work in Bedford Falls as a bartender. I've worked here since November. I previously worked around the corner from Brendan and Brian in New York. So I knew the establishments, that they run very well, which is the main reason for me to come down here, because I'd seen how they really done a great job in New York City. I 8 years, I worked in O'Flanagan, I know very typically Irish. So I worked in O'Flanagan's around the corner for 8 years, and we always had great rapport. They were very good neighborhood people. They were always willing to help us, like we would help them. So when I heard they moved down here, I was looking to move myself. I've been down here before, but I love with Charleston. A lot of friends down here. So I have no hesitation in working for Brendan and Brian. They run a great show, very respectful people. I can see, see all the people that are here to support them. They create a great atmosphere, great neighborhood atmosphere in the bar. And I just think by giving us that little bit of extra extension, it allows the business to survive and sustain, and allows these guys to pay their kids' education, food on their table. You know, this hour or two is monstrous. It's really a huge difference in how much money and bills that they can pay. And also it's gonna provide excess jobs. You know, these extra few hours will allow us to employ more people. We're going to need another person in the kitchen, we need another server. So I think that also is a big benefit. The neighborhood will be employing more people. Also, I just ask you to really give us a chance and allow us to go that little bit later, just like pretty much everybody else in the neighborhood is.
Thank you, Mr. Aquin. Anybody else here to speak in favor and support of the application? Yes, sir.
Hi, how's it going? My name is Brian Fitzpatrick. I'm one of the owners of Bedford Falls. All I can say is that, we're not going to do anything to embarrass ourselves. We're not going to do anything to embarrass you, make you regret your decision. 22 years ago, I came to South Carolina the first time, did my basic training in Fort Jackson, South Carolina, came down to Charleston. I'm the reason why we're down here right now. Yeah, I started coming down here. I love it. It's very community based. It's the holy city. This is the greatest spot in the world. I want to be here the next 30 years. We have no intention of selling the place or anything like that. We want to be here for the next 30 years. I want to work with you guys. If you guys want to, any flexibility here, we're fair guys. So like I said, we're not going to embarrass ourselves. We're not going to embarrass you. We appreciate the time.
Thank you, Mr. Kirkpatrick. Anyone else to speak in favor or in support of the application? All right, now we'll hear from people who are opposed to the application. Please state your name for the record and your address.
My name is John Gotti, and I live at 38 Nassau Street, and I live a block from Bedford Falls. My alias is Steve Bailey. I'd like to have a time, it's about 5 minutes.
Please, sure, very fair.
I'd like to address the ECDC, just.
I would.
No, that person, just stick with me.
All right.
They came here, they made their pitch, perfectly fine to make their pitch. And I do want to point out that it was a couple of years ago that the ECDC also opposed us tooth and nail on closing the gas station, Exxon gas station. They closed us tooth and nail. And me and my neighbors fought that. We fought it all the way to Columbia. We closed the gas station overnight. We got their beer and wine license restricted, so they had to close at 1, they closed at 6. The ECDC, for whatever reason, was dead set against that thing. We were right. We thought that closing the gas station overnight would help our neighborhood. There used to be more people in the gap on Wolf Street at 3 a.m. and 3 p.m. No question about open air drug market. Police were very supportive of us. They supported closing overnight. The ECDC fought it tooth and nail. We thought it was going to make it a little bit better. We were wrong. Closing the gas station overnight was a remarkable effect. Giving the late night stuff. And our neighborhood is much better because of it. Jones, I know Edward very well. He's a very passionate person. I live 1 block from Bedford Falls. Edward lives in North Charleston. Okay, he knows the east side very well, but he lives in North Charleston. It's just a fact. Now, this is the 3rd time in 18 months neighborhoods had to appear before the BZA to oppose the expansion of Bedford Falls, either the footprint or the hours. The BZA has denied Bedford Falls twice before, and they should do it again. I got together with some of my neighbors over the weekend, and we all agreed that this is really getting exhausting 3 times. And they think this needs to stop, and we need to start having them come down here. Stop. It needs to be over. It's not like the owners didn't know what they were getting into before they bought the property. before they bought the property, Mr. Bachelder, informed them in an email on May 2021, that he made it clear that he would oppose any expansion, either the hours or the footprint. He said, quote, a reminder in case the new restaurant takes over, the hours of the operation of this restaurant is prohibited from extending past, well, midnight. He wrote them in an email at the time. As you just heard, Mr. Backhelmer does not, remains in opposition, and we couldn't agree more. Residents of this neighborhood immediately behind us, you see right here, we worked very hard to increase the livability of this neighborhood. That hasn't been easy with the gas station on the adjacent corner, the influx of the partiers from the nearby bars and college housing. Bedford Falls' current closing at midnight offers a reasonable compromise between the needs of the business and the needs of the neighborhood. There is no reason to change. Dr. Powers, the CEO of Fetter Healthcare, which is right next door, back in September 2021, wrote in her testimony, she said, quote, Eastside welcomes local businesses, but as a healthcare facility and community partner, we believe the opening of the bar that operates until 2 a.m. in close proximity to the Exxon station is courting disaster, she says. City Ordinance 2015-125, which authorizes special exceptions, specifically says that the addition of an establishment cannot, quote, harm the character of lot and cites geographic consideration. This is what she says. This is precisely what it will do because of the location next to the gas station and the crime and drug dealing, past late night alcohol sales have brought the neighborhood. Dr. Powers' word is just as true today as it was 18 months ago. Every community needs residents like my neighbors who have come here today. Can you guys stand up, please, people who come to oppose this thing? Some people have already had to leave.
Some people have to leave.
Yes, East Side is a neighborhood that works, okay? But, our neighborhood, we're the people who live in this neighborhood. We pick up the garbage, we plant the trees, we know each other, we help each other. We're what makes a neighborhood a neighborhood. But it's bad public policy that makes it harder every day for people like us to stay in the neighborhood. What you do here today matters. King Street is overrun with 2 a.m. bars. More late night bars makes it all the harder for people like us to remain in the neighborhood. We already have drunks pouring down Wolf and Amherst Street when the bars empty out at 1 and 2 o'clock. We have the Exxon station. We have college party houses. We don't need more of it. It's important to note, this needs to be brought up. It's important to note that something unprecedented happened in this particular case. The Charleston Police Department has been forced to retract a letter of support by one of its officers supporting Bedford Falls' request for a 2 a.m. close. That in turn led to the amendment of a letter of support by the Neighborhood Association. These unprecedented actions are a direct result of the machinations of Bedford Falls and its attorney to encourage the CPD to file a letter of support under its CPD letterhead in violation of department norm. Barr's lawyer is the vice chairman of the City Planning Commission and shouldn't be conflicted out in these proceedings, in my view. These actions, along with Bedford Falls' previous attempts to illegally expand the patio, show it's not a good candidate to operate a late night establishment. The BZA-Z voted no to such behavior did, and they should do it now. We have a reasonable compromise that everybody can live with. Finally, before I end, I want to show you this. I'd like to show you this photograph right here. This photograph is of Bedford Falls at 7:52 p.m. Friday night. That's 5 days before this hearing. These are Bedford Falls patrons illegally drinking in the parking lot. This is precisely what the BZA ordered stopped last spring, then unanimously rejected the hearing a couple months later. It was going on last Friday, and it's not like the owners didn't know. Brendan Patrick was in the parking lot on his phone at the time, and I know this because I was there and I took this photograph. The board cannot possibly reward this kind of behavior. That's unauthorized letter by the police, and misleading the neighborhood association. illegal drinking in the parking lot by approving it till 2 a.m. closing. This should not be a close call on my part. Nothing has changed since, this is really important, nothing has changed since the BZA rejected the same request 18 months ago. The BZA should reject it again, and the neighbors should not have to repeatedly drag ourselves down here to protect the neighborhood. Please deny the special exception. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Bailey. Anybody else here to speak in opposition to the application?
I'm Stacey Barrington. I live at 59 Amherst Street, which is right down the street from Bedford Falls. And I think the Kirkpatrick family is wonderful. I don't have any qualms with them. I do, however, have opposition to this project of continue to be open until 2 a.m. simply because I feel that the location of their establishment will funnel more belligerent kids down my street to damage my property. Almost, I would say twice a month, I have video after video after video after video on my security cameras of kids that don't know how to handle their alcohol, getting in fights, damaging my property, taking my flower planters off the front of my stoop and launching them into the street just for fun, tearing my window boxes down, marring my fence. Let's see, what else have they done? They've run into our cars with line bikes, crashing line bikes into our cars, $2,000 of damage. So it's just on and on. And I know that I don't want to hurt or crush their business, as we've been told. I have nothing against them, but I'm tired of suffering damage every few weeks. I come out of my house, wake up happy in the morning, and then I see some beer bottles all over my yard and, stuff torn up. And it's like, okay, gee, I went out once too, but I could walk down the street and not tear it up as I was going by. 2 weekends ago, some kid decided that he was angry and ripped my mailbox halfway off the side of my wall. So that's another affair. So with the location of this, when the kids get dispersed at 2 a.m. and they're coming out King Street, they've got all these various streets they can walk down to get home to wherever they're walking to. But if they have one last stop right at the edge of our neighborhood, that's gonna make a difference. It's the one last place that they can go, hey, let's stop here, and then they funnel right down my street. And that's that could be potentially a lot of people. So I'm not here to call anybody names or say anything bad about anybody. I appreciate you all being in the neighborhood. We've talked a lot about people eating dinner. I would love to know who we're talking about that's going to eat dinner at 2 a.m. It's not me. And I think that something else that should be noted, and it's not meant to be derogatory in any way, the ECDC is the Economic Community Development Corporation. Please think about that name. They do a lot of wonderful work for children in the neighborhood and children all around the area. And they do get funding from businesses. So I would just like to throw it out there that this could be a lot more about funding than it is about the impact on the neighborhood. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else to speak in opposition to the application? Yes, ma'am, please state your name for the record.
Hi, I'm Amy Brown. I live on Amherst Street, so I'm going to be very quick. So again, just like Stacy, I wanted to say thank you, number one, for hearing us out. We're really excited to have businesses in the neighborhood. That's not the problem, and I'm not here to speak to anybody's integrity in running their business. As somebody who lives in the neighborhood, my concerns are as follows. I think we've addressed the parking issue. That one's, we've got a parking problem in Charleston. Everybody knows that. This is not going to help. But my concerns personally, as somebody who lives in the neighborhood, are the precedent that we're setting if we do this. So we already have a rule in place. I'm a bit confused as to why business moved in knowing there was a midnight rule, and now all of a sudden we're talking about it's going to hurt their business. In fact, they have to adhere to a rule they do when they moved in. So I'm confused on that one. I am really concerned about the precedent of extending that time frame. So if we extend it for them, who else do we then need to extend it for, especially on the east side? I know there's a few other businesses that were mentioned. The Luncheonor is one. I'm closer to the the East Bay Beer Garden. Their hours are midnight, so they're limited to midnight. They're more similar in the size business as this one is, and they're also right back up to a neighborhood. So there's definitely a precedent for midnight staying when you are that size and you are backing up in the neighborhood like that. You know, we do have a safety issue. We do have a crime problem in the neighborhood, particularly when it comes to some of our younger residents, right? Some of our college students, they have a tendency, like Stacey was saying, to be a little bit damaging when they're coming home after midnight. There's an old saying, nothing good happens after midnight. I kind of tend to stick with that when you're on the younger side, especially if you're a renter, and you're not that bothered by property damage and trash in the neighborhood and things that people that own are. So we have consistently on the east side had a problem with policing in our neighborhood and safety and security and being open after midnight and encouraging people particularly to have alcoholic beverages and be drinking late night. That's not going to make that any better. So those are my concerns there. You know, I'm also a little, there seems to be a contradiction in terms here with family restaurant, but then somebody open for a family going out and having dinner after midnight. I haven't seen a ton of that in my life, so I'm a little confused in that contradiction as well. I just want you to know, look, I am personally looking forward to going there and being a patron of the London Village or of the Bedford Falls. I walk my dog by that area all the time, looking forward to it. I will be eating dinner and having a great skateboard tonight though. So, thank you.
Thank you. All right, anybody else speaking in opposition? Yes, sir, please state your name and address for the record.
Hi, good evening. My name is Philippe Burt. I live on 3 Wolf Street. I'd just like to let everyone know that everyone that spoke in favor does not live anywhere directly in front of Bedford Falls. I live on 3 Wolf Street, so my window is in several of these pictures. I'm about 120 feet away from Bedford Falls.
You can, I think you might be able to move that mic out.
I've lived on 3 Wolf Street for about 13 years, and like Steve Bailey said, we've been in this constant battle trying to get to sleep. We had the gas station open pretty much 24 hours serving alcohol, and after we were able to negotiate with them closing at 1 a.m., stuff has cooled down. When Bedford Falls started 2021, they sent out basically they sent out stuff in our mailboxes letting us know that that they would be, you know, that they would like support, you know, to stay open past 2 a.m. That was back in 2021. This time, nothing. So it's come to as a shock to me that, you know, they're back at this and trying to get through once again. Medical professional. So I work long hours. So the people that spoke that there's no noise, that's so untrue. Steve Bailey had a picture of people drinking outside. You do hear the bar banter. You do hear the noise. I try to be a good neighbor and not call the police. You know, working 7 to 7, you're very exhausted. But if this bar is able to stay open past 2, it might be a different story. Lastly, parking spaces on Wolf Street. There's 10 spots for 25 residents, so parking is a problem. And then lastly, what I'd like to say is we can't go back. You know, we've made so much progress to make the neighborhood better, and with 2 a.m. closing, it's not going to be beneficial at all for the neighbors. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hurd. Yes, sir. Please state your name and address.
I'm Pastor Matthew Rivers. I'm Jones Chapel, right on 18 Hanover Street. I am the one, the most progressive person to talk about business on pretty much in every state that I've been in the country. I do the same thing. The thing I need Bedford Falls to understand is when I came to this event in 2018, it was violence on the birthday I took over that church. A man shot another man point blank in the face. I met with the chief, I met with every pastor that I could to talk about what we could do to solve crime. It was very difficult then. When Stacey says she's got camera is because we went out and put cameras and gave cameras out. Not charge people, we gave them, we installed them for free so that we can help reduce the crime in the neighborhood. I don't live on Hamilton Street, I can't afford to live there. I try, but I don't. But one of the things I do is you don't see me much is because I'm behind the scenes talking to my neighbors, talking to the people who live there. Problem is that we do have not a lot of homeowners, a lot of rentals. And what happens is that at nighttime, we've been trying to battle people keying cars, leaving trash on the street. Crime is, as I can tell you the same thing as Steve said, we battled the issue about the gas station being open. There's just a lot of things that's happening in St. John's. Now, I don't know you. You never called me. You never come by my church. You never done that. Most businesses do know who I am. They come by. And they ask me, hey, Pastor Rich, what do you think about this? I'm a guy that likes to sit down. I'm going to have to probably support you or whatever. If I only ask this. From a parking standpoint, ma'am, I understand you made a map that showed this. That is not what people think. That is not the way people think in terms, oh, I'm gonna just go down the street and I'm gonna turn. We deal with that every day. I deal with that in front of my church. I deal with that in front of down all the streets that we do. People won't just say, hey, I'm gonna drive around till I get back to there. They're gonna park where it's closest for them to park. And that is a real problem for the east side. So I agree, I think, with some of the people who said, we ought to sit down to the table. Maybe we ought to come back again and find out how can we all together. Even I would be willing to say, hey, you know what, I got a parking lot in my church to try to work with this situation. But right now, I believe this is going to be another problem that we're going to have to try to figure out. I haven't been to your restaurant. I'm happy to come and see you. I'd love to sit down and talk with you. But this is a real issue that we are battling with. I don't have a dog in the fight, well, who likes who? I just know what this community has done and what it means to me to make sure that we don't introduce more things to it. And I will address the issue about the chief. I was on the phone with him when this came up. I was very upset that somebody from the CPD wrote a letter in support of something that was not authorized by them. For me, that was a bad thing. That's why I called it myself. So I would just ask that if there's a way to path forward, I'm in full support of that. What I don't want to see is that we make this a thing now we let do, because we've been fighting bars trying to come into the east side, trying to get past the 2 a.m. hour. And the thing that has worked is that we have kept them out from doing that, where we are working to reduce crime. It is a high crime area. I don't mind them being on King Street. What I do mind is that the residents that are there on the east side have a problem with parking, have a problem with people keying their cars, have a problem with crime, and we have been fighting to reduce that by doing these simple things. So I think when a restaurant comes in and a moral understanding is saying, this is where I'm coming in, I'm gonna meet the standards of what I said, which is 12 o'clock, then we expect them as a community to meet that standard. That's it. Not to come back 2 months later, not to come back 3 months later, but to say, I have agreed to close at this time so that there will not be an additional thing. Now, closing with this, and I'm gonna pass it so I can talk more. What I do understand is that people have not had a problem because you weren't open in past 12 o'clock. So folks come to your restaurant, they eat, they have a great time, and they go home. So I'm glad to know that people haven't had an issue. I'm glad to know they haven't, because you have agreed to close at 12, so nobody's on the street after that at your restaurant. And nobody has to worry about folks going down the street and keying their cars and having crime to come in the neighborhood. But it will attract people that we do not want in the neighborhood. But again, I'm open to sit down, talk with you and your brother, talk with you in the business. And if St. John's can help you, we are more than the business to try to do it. So I ask right now that we do not approve this. So there can be some idea on how we can work with this restaurant and improve their quality of being profitable and being a part of our community. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Ma'am, in opposition. Thank you.
But I agree with him on one of the first point. Let's find a solution that will stay in time and we don't have to come back every 9 months. It is exhausting as a resident, I'm 200 feet from the bar. And I don't want to have to come back all the time or worry, what's the next thing do they have in mind? Are they going to ask? How can we never satisfy anything? It is really mentally exhausting, knowing that what to do 3 times for this bar, what to do for the exam, and whatever, next. So I think it is really, really painful. Especially, I would say, in a circumstance of the current late night exception, are extremely favorable for businesses compared to residents. We have a hard time to prove to you that we're suffering because everything is done to satisfy the restaurant bar that want to open late. In our defense, almost nothing. We can't say anything almost to defend ourselves. And that's really pathetic that you have a system like this, where in fact, so that's something. That's going back to parking. We do have an issue in parking. Just at the corner, people park anywhere where they're not even allowed. There is a fire hydrant, for instance, at the corner of the Nassau and Wall Street, just a block down. There are cars every time in front of the, hydrant. What happens the day there is a fire? In front of our house, you can't park also near the corner. Yet there are accidents and our car got totally smashed to the point where to buy another car because people park there when they go to their business hours, whether it is this business, which I'm not getting, or King Street, because we have a major four-way to come from King Street, to come to Meeting Street. When you come in car or bike, what's the main entrance? There is a light for the pedestrian, and there is also light for the cars. As Reed Street is more complicated, Columbus Street as the end, King Street has no bar on the bar side. So we have a lot of traffic, pedestrian and car, and people coming in, park wherever they find the space. The number of times you find booted cars on the church parking lot because they are not allowed to park on Saturday or Sunday, even though you are can pay you the week, they will be booted because they are there on the day of the service. All those places are taken. So no point. And then to go back to the point that the pastor said, it's working well because they close at midnight. The reason why we don't have the Commodore situation, Commodore opened until 2. Well, let's not open until 2. Let's keep it open like this, it will work. So, and it works. And I think also, I find it also very well, as another person had pointed out, why do you reduce your space? You have like 589 square feet of interior parking place plus a covered terrace. You are reducing it to 489, so you can gain 5 parking spaces of 6, so you can put people outside. That's just a photo, that's a parking lot that is saved. When you reduce, does it make sense? If you want to make money, why are you reducing your interior patronage and ask to increase how it doesn't make sense? Are you going to demolish the space that you are in the old building? Are you removing the restaurant interior space in the old building? Are we going to see, or are you going to keep it to re-increase whenever it turns to your benefit? That suddenly, oh yes, we use it, but we still have this space here for future interior. So it doesn't make sense. I think this property is a wonderful property. And I think the concept of doing a neighborhood restaurant, it's the best concept. Because this is the best way to make money and to also live well and also to have a good relationship with your neighbor. Your neighbor came to me and you see me. I have been to the ECDC all this time. I have not seen you the past few months presenting directly. Yes.
Okay, all right. I think,
I go to these speeches.
just hold on. Everybody, no. Mr. Kirkpatrick,
So
please.
it's just like,
All right.
okay.
Can we wrap this
but
up,
I
please?
have come to the CDC. I know because I have asked this letter of the CDC to the previous Sheila, the previous president, asked, how come you supported? We are not aware of this, and I live in the block. Or somewhere I remember I met them about a year ago, that should be enough. I said, well, maybe not. Okay? So I don't know if we're terrible. I don't think we're terrible.
Okay.
We go, we participate.
Thank you. All right. Yes, ma'am.
My name is I live here on the east side of the one. We work here the last. Real quickly, for the members of the board, when you open their website, you do not see the burger. You see the martini or cocktail. What does it tell you? It tells you they're planning on selling cocktails or burgers. Please. You remember, right? This is the first part. Second one, when they explain this, okay, none of you live here. Do you live in this side? Do you guys have a-
Excuse me, ma'am. We're not going to ask questions of the applicant, please. You're going to give your comments in opposition, and then we're going to sit down. We're going to move on.
I'd like to know that the very nature of this request is against the noise ordinance, section 2116. I'm going to read it. Can I read it?
Yes, you may. You're not going to read the whole thing, are you?
No. It shall be unlawful for any person, entity, which is LLC, or establishment to make, continue, or allowed to be made, or continued any clamorous singing, yelling, shouting, whooping, bellowing, hollering, or other loud noises, wanton and unnecessary noises, or to make, continue, to allow to be made, or continued any gatherings, either in the daytime and at night. It's read the peace and quiet of the city, whether in the public street or privately owned or continued property within the public or private. This is what I would like to remind you, because the nature of them staying open until 2 a.m. and selling alcohol, this is what creates the issue for the neighbors, for Philippa, who's raising a daughter, who's working at the hospital, who is a contributing member of the community, who lives in the east side. And I'm here to become Mr. Stephen Bailey that mentioned, he's rendered a doctor. He's also a contributing member. He needs to sleep. Philippa needs to sleep. That's why I keep coming back here, to protect the residents' sleep at night so they can sleep. They don't have to stay up until 2 a.m. and call the police, which I do. I run around with this zoning ordinance law in my hand, and I explain to 12 student units next to me. I know this should not be addressing you, right?
Yes, please don't address anybody else in the argument. You're exactly right, ma'am. Thank you. Please just, yeah. All right, anybody else here to speak in opposition to the application? All right, so now we get a rebuttal.
Brief rebuttal.
Brief rebuttal, please. Yes. And I, you know, you all decide who would like to give the rebuttal, and I don't mind if you take a couple minutes, but sure, tackle it collectively, that's fine, but let's just try to get through this. I've been very patient, I think, with everybody in allowing your comments, so let's not press your luck.
So I think a couple of things. Number one, I want to address the issues of this map. And actually, I want to talk about the first map. This map obviously shows the number of people who have signed letters of support in reference to, I'll hand this to the chair, in reference to this application. And I've organized them based upon the multifamily buildings and then the individual addresses. And while some of those names, some of those letters may be people who are renters, they're not second-class citizens in this city. They still have the ability, they still pay the taxes that relate to businesses, and they still require services of the city. And also the opportunity to be able to live in a neighborhood and be able to walk to a restaurant, just as I, who own a house in the city, who wants to be able to walk 2 blocks down the street. So we can't treat residents who are renters as second class, because they have the equal right to speak at these hearings as well. And secondly, with regards to other letters of support from the City of Charleston Police Department, those letters were acquired by just a mere request. And you know, I would just say that imputing the character of other people is not something that I would do. And most importantly, you know, the integrity of standing before you is something that I believe that I would not impugn my own character standing before you. That's all I would say about that. And lastly, I think the issues of noise were addressed, and the parking. And if you could go to, I want to go to one slide. Keep going. So this is actually this is the rear. This is Nassau Street on the other side of Bedford Falls, and so that's what you see. And if you go to the slide before that, please. That's the intersection. I believe that's Mr. Bailey's residence right there. And you see that's one way. I didn't come up with the idea that turning one way. So if at night, if there's no parking, obviously no one's gonna just park on the sidewalk. That was theoretically the idea behind the other map. And if you'll keep going, I guess, forward. Keep going a couple more. So actually, go first one, sorry. So this is one of the areas that we block off, and so it's basically on the other side is Bedford Falls. That's a building, that's a small building, and if you'll go back one. So this is we actually saw Mr. Bailey taking the photo, and what you see is him walking up because you can't see over the fence. You have to stand on the hot mustard's gas meter in order to take that photo. So the extent to getting that photo means that you literally have to stand and extend. I'm 5'1", folks. So that tells you, and that fence is 6 foot 7. So to get that clear shot tells you what you had to do to get that clear shot of that photo. And I think that's really it. And I understand the concerns. And I think one thing that is very true is that it's a moment when you see people who, for what they are, and I would just say that these two, Brendan and Brian, are essentially what I call the salt of the earth, and that's how they have treated this restaurant. This is how they've treated me. This is how they've treated everybody. They become a part of this neighborhood. You may not have seen them on a daily basis, but they're there every day. You know, in fact, the most adjacent resident to us hasn't had any complaints. In fact, I believe that has been made clear to city staff that the residential property that's next door to us doesn't have any issues. And I think one of the other reasons too is because of the vociferous attacks that were made last year. That impugned Mr. Kirkpatrick is pretty much the reason why they have not had a desire to go over the 38. And I think that, you know, Mr. Bailey, you're aware of that reason.
All right, let's.
So leaving that aside, I think that was one of the major reasons why they have not reached out to those residents.
Thank you very much, Ms. Harrison. Mr. Kirkpatrick, just a few moments, please. Thank you.
My wife really should be supposed to be here. He didn't find it. We didn't have a sitter, so it was really because of this form. I don't think it's appropriate to bring my son and daughter here. So a lot of the loudness that just happened before, this is stemming from a little over a year ago. We have the photo over here of him standing on a gas pipe on our neighbors. We're closing out tabs because they're being harassed. Everything else. This hasn't stopped. The reason why I haven't reached out to certain neighbors is because in August 7th, 2021, I got an email. Brendan, we are impressed with your new home in Stone Castle. We also think the neighbors would like it as well. I didn't take the bait. He was rattling my cage. I said, Steve, thank you so much for your kind words. We're very blessed. Big change from Clerk Street in Jersey City. This is the first time my wife and mother-in-law have ever had a driveway. Needless to say, we feel spoiled. I have reason for pause for dealing with certain individuals.
Okay, listen, this is not a referendum on personality, okay? You can do that outside of this room. You have a number of people who have been sitting here very patiently, who have been waiting for their opportunity to get their application heard. And they've had to sit through everybody else commenting on every little issue. If you're going to rebut, please do so, but please do so without attacking anybody personally or getting into personal issues, okay?
This directly had to affect my business. So this has been a constant battle of harassment. Order of protection was filed. It was kept open. It challenges the merit of that individual.
With due respect, I have to have a chance to correct the record, okay? Please.
How can you say that on?
Mr. Bailey, this is really going beyond the issue. Here's what I'll do. Excuse me. Here's what I will do. I will ignore that statement and we will strike it from the record to the extent that I have that power. We have no recognition of that statement, Mr. Bailey. Do you understand?
Right, what he said.
All right.
Yes, no, thank you. We erased what he said, right?
Right.
Can we just call a vote, Mr. Chairman?
Well, yeah, if somebody's ready to make a motion, we can call a vote. Somebody may have a. We've had enough. We've had enough rebuttal. We've had enough rebuttal. Thank you. Now, we're going to have some order here.
Maybe we could excuse all of them.
I'm gonna take
From
my
the room.
Yeah.
Sorry,
I'm gonna take my clients out.
You have to respect to the board and everybody else. You're wrong, Steve. You always do that.
All right. All right, so now we have discussion among the board members, and I don't know if anybody has any questions for the city. I don't know if anybody has.
For the city, if I may, Mr. Chairman.
Matt Chandler, could you all be quiet, please? I am curious about number 5, where we started about the parking. That sentence reads that the operation of the establishment will not be a substantial detriment to parking in adjoining residential zoning districts. And I'm having trouble, as that attorney mentioned, getting my head around the concept that parking that's already in place till midnight is going to be a substantial additional detriment to the neighborhood if it extends to 1 o'clock. It's hard to appreciate that because this paragraph is addressed to the operation of the establishment. I guess that means the extension of hours too, that would encompass that. But does the city have any explanation of how there's an additional substantial detriment to parking if it's extended for 1 hour from midnight to 1 o'clock?
Based on my belief that the the operation of the establishment past midnight would lead to, and I do believe that there are probably people who park in the neighborhood who go to the establishment right now. And I would think that by extending the hours, you're extending those parking impacts within the neighborhood, and that could be a substantial detriment to those neighborhoods.
May I shed a little light on this? I think I can, and I don't mean to control the discussion, but I do think that it's helpful. Because I was thinking the same thing as you. Section 54-206, special exception uses. The burden of showing the requirements of the special exception is on the applicant, okay? And so it says, after review, the Board of Zoning Appeals, us, must find that the requirements listed below for such uses are met. And so we have to have a determination that all of these are met. From what I understand from Lee, the city is conceding 1, 2, 3, 4, and 6, that the applicant has provided sufficient facts to demonstrate those matters have been satisfied. Number 5 is the one. And number 5 would require the applicant to satisfy the fact that the operation of the establishment will not be of substantial detriment to parking in adjoining residential zoning districts. And so that's the burden of the applicant to show that there's no substantial detriment. Now,
Yeah, I mean,
it's not. In other words, it's not the burden of the neighborhood to say, yeah, it's going to impact parking. It's the burden of the applicant to say it's not going to be substantial detriment. And the board has to make a decision as to whether or not the applicant has carried that burden.
I mean, I guess my common sense question is whether there are neighborhood people in parking between 12 and 1 who would be deprived of that parking. But, I mean, it sounds to me the other big impression I got, besides all this acrimony and history that we don't need to know about, but it's clear to me that the city's policies about forbidding parking in a large area of Upper King Street so they don't have to enforce their police power there so hard. They shut down all the parking on King Street for like a 5-block area and a couple of blocks east and west. That does shove a lot of parking farther east and west than it would otherwise be. It sounds to me obvious, and I'd like to hear Lee if he knows any better. It sounds to me to be obvious that the King Street policies substantially, detrimentally affect the parking in this east side neighborhood on the weekends. Do you agree, disagree, or have an opinion about that?
I don't have an opinion, I just don't know. I haven't heard anything to say yes or no to that question.
I mean, it's hard for me to see with the anecdotal stories of damage we've heard. I can't square those with the multiple reports that this establishment is a very controlled establishment with respect to alcohol use. It's hard for me to tie all these suggestions. Well, let me ask you this. Am I correct that the Exxon station still stays open till 1?
I believe that's
That's
correct.
the place that was the first hot button for everything from loitering to drug use to what have you. It used to be open at night, all night. And I can't remember my other issue, but I'll let somebody else talk. I'm just floating questions out here.
I do want to piggyback on that thought as far as parking goes. It seems to me, what I'm hearing, that some of the impacts on King Street adversely impacted this neighborhood previously, perhaps pushing it to the point that even slight increase may wind up being more detrimental impact than it would have been had that not taken place. So,
Well, you could make that argument for one car, sure.
but then the question becomes, okay, we're going to have substantial detriment. I think one car maybe doesn't fit that bill, but several might. And I want to acknowledge one other aspect to this, that the vested rights that are associated with what we will be deciding tonight carry on the property even after the even if the business were no longer in operation. Would it carry to any future occupants on this site?
Yes.
Lee, I'm on, sat on here almost a year now, and I was not here when I understand maybe a petition was brought forward earlier. I was here when we talked about outdoor dining, but I wasn't here prior to that. Can you catch me up to speed with what happened prior to that?
I think that, I believe that the application was withdrawn before it came to the board. Is that correct, Tim? Yeah. Yeah, it was. So it never came for a hearing.
Oh, but no Penny would have it. Penny's got everything. Thank you.
Right, thank you. That was, when was that? August of last year. It's gone to the board, but it was withdrawn by the applicant prior to the zoning appeals hearing, because I was not in favor.
And what was
I
the
think there was
request?
opposition.
What was the request to be made at that time?
The request was to operate. I think they were proposing to stay open until 2 a.m.
It's the same.
Same
The same,
request.
same.
So the common door stays open till 2, and it's basically grandfathered in. And how far away is it from the Exxon station? 3 blocks maybe north?
20 minutes of walk or 5 minutes of drive?
More than 3 blocks.
The Commodore though is a different type of establishment, isn't it? I mean, it's not a restaurant. I don't believe. I don't know. I'm not 100% sure.
It's a live
It is a
music.
restaurant?
Live
Oh,
music.
it's not.
It's a live music.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I had the exact same question that Mr. Morrison had, and but I'm hearing that the more information that we have about the pressures on the neighborhood in regards to parking created by, perhaps created by the King Street closure is something that we should definitely consider. Because I also had that question about what's 1 more hour.
And my point there is whether, I don't know if you're saying this or not, my point there is, I think the vandalism that's been cited from what we have heard about that complete absence of adverse reports on this establishment, that vandalism is far more likely attributed to King Street overflow, which is now being thrown on them. I haven't heard that their establishment resembles anything on King Street at all.
Right.
Photograph of 3 guys smoking a cigarette, standing in the parking lot, doesn't bother me. They're out there because they're smokers. They all have cigarettes in their hands. That's why they had to go out there. And it's not late at night, that's daytime photos. Lee, I was correct in my
interpretation of the city's opinion on it, it's solely about the parking at this point in time. There's no quality of life question that we have to decide in this ordinance.
No, there's no mention of any quality of life issue or threshold or consideration.
So even if the place was causing the people who were coming in and bashing mailboxes, I don't know that the city has written us an ordinance that would allow us to make a decision on that basis.
And there was no proposal made or discussion had about alternative sites for parking for patrons? I mean, was that something that y'all discussed when they made the application?
No, we didn't discuss that.
It's never been offered.
They have mentioned the Feder parking lot, but I'm not sure if that's formally available.
Right.
They offer valet parking? I didn't hear that they did.
We did have a lease, they did, and then wait, you can't testify.
Does anybody want to ask Ms. Harrison about the parking lot
I would like
lease
to ask
situation?
Ms. Harrison about the better parking lot.
Thank you, Ms. Harrison.
They did have a lease at Feder parking lot, and they at least approximately 15 spaces. And then Feder switched over to a private parking scenario. And so what was ending up happening is that they were essentially double dipping on their parking. But we do know that that metered spaces are still available and you can park on that site and pay the fee. And that is obviously is conventional from leading in from Nassau Street. And that's the closest parking spot.
Mr. Batchelder, am I correct that they currently meet the minimum parking requirements for this size space as it is?
They ever discuss with you the option of making it 1 o'clock instead of 2 o'clock?
They proposed that. I saw an email, I think it was today, they proposed doing that.
And do you feel that that makes any difference with regard to the parking issue?
Well, it decreases their operations by 1 hour, so it's 1 hour extension versus 2. Makes some difference, but still a post-midnight use.
In other words, the city isn't prepared to recommend the approval of a 1 a.m. closing time, is that correct?
But, I mean, let me ask you about this, Lee. When the city's considering the original application for this restaurant, they consider the impact on parking if they allow the restaurant to open only till 9 or 10 or 11 or 12 or 1. They consider the additional hour or 2 or half hour impact, or do they pick a typical closing time, midnight or 11? There's no close analysis of the additional impact of the parking per hour. Well, I'll just say, I think this is a good operation of a neighborhood restaurant and bar. I'm not worried personally that with these people running it, from what we've heard about their character, their business acumen, that they will allow this bar restaurant to deteriorate in its activities because they're allowed to stay open 1 more hour from midnight to 1. I'm not convinced of that at all. I think this neighborhood has asked, or a lot of people in this neighborhood are asking for some more time to have this place open. And certainly a lot of people in this neighborhood that don't want any businesses open past 9 o'clock, in my opinion. And I'm glad they closed the Exxon station. when they do. But it seems harsh to me to deny them an extra hour. So I would move to approve the amended petition to 1 extra hour.
All right, Mr. Morrison has moved to approve the amended request for a special exception in order to permit the applicant to remain open with its business at Bedford Falls until 1 a.m. Is there a second, or is there any discussion?
I just wanted to ask Mr. Batchelder one more question, if that's okay. Someone who spoke mentioned that they're concerned about this setting a precedent for other businesses. Are you concerned about that at all?
Not really. I think every situation is unique. So I'm not concerned about that. The one thing I'll just add to that is that if you're inclined to approve this, you might consider conditioning it on the type of operation that this is, meaning it's not a use that has amplified music or DJs or any outside music or amplification at all.
I would say, provided no substantial change to the character of the business occurs.
Okay, so the motion is to allow the business to remain open, to grant the special exception, to allow the business to remain open until 1 a.m., provided that there's, on the condition that there is no substantial change in the operation of the premises.
Character of the business.
Character of the business.
You know, when we serve on these different boards and commissions, you know, you get perspective, and you know, Marvetta's perspective from her service on a citywide commission weighs heavily with it. She believes this is not going to have a great impact on this neighborhood, and just living, of course, next door to a great impact of Marvetta for a long time. If she says it, I believe it. I'll second that motion.
All right. Motion's been made to approve. It's been seconded. Do we have further discussion? We're ready for a vote. Voice vote. Or individual polling. We'll go ahead and just go down the line. Mr. Morrison.
Aye.
Ms. Bennett.
Aye.
Ms. McKay.
Aye.
Ms. Grass.
Aye.
Ms. Richards.
Aye.
And I will also vote in favor of the special exception. So that is granted with the condition that the amended special exception application business can remain open until 1 a.m. with the condition that the business continues to be, the premises continues to be operated same manner and with the same character as it currently is operated. Is that correct, Mr. Morrison? Is that right? All right, so that application is done. Oh, sure.
I could probably use that.
Thank y'all.
It's helping all the patients. Good seeing you.
Good to see you. Thank you. Thank y'all.
All right, thank you.
I didn't know what you said.
Sorry, Marvetta was at the committee that studied.
Oh,
She
yeah,
lives
that's
next to the
the.
Commodore.
Yeah.
I think that's
it.
Yeah, we'll just take, that was a very long application process, so let's take 5. We're gonna adjourn for 5 minutes. I apologize if you've been waiting. One of those nights.
I believe you guys are gonna need some kind of speaker timer to make sure people do not speak over their time.
You, I'm gonna agree with you 100%.
He's running this law, I cannot even be sure I'm being paid. I'm pissed, I got over an hour to drive. The longer y'all stay, the longer I have to.
I hear you. I'll speak to the chairman.
The longer you leave go, the longer I have to stay.
I think we gotta give the chairman a big gavel. You know, one in my house.
So are you guys finished or are you just taking a break?
Just taking a break.
Seriously?
Sorry, yes. This may set a record tonight. No, well, 7 records. Yeah, it's gonna set a record.
Can we keep the votes to a simple yea or nay, all agree, all opposed?
You gotta talk to that man and sits in that city light chair.
Over there.
And find him. This is why I didn't want that job.
You guys wanna do all agree, raise your hand, all opposed, motion carries.
We ordered in drinks for.
Nobody coming over,
Charlotte.
Right after talking to each other, both sides.
I have no guarantee I'm not gonna be ticketed where I'm parked.
Sweetie, I'm in total sympathy with you. I just have no control over the situation.
You gotta be sure
I don't.
I gotta be down there early in the morning. Y'all really need to be.
You probably gotta talk to the city's employees on that one. Cause I don't know what the rules are on that. I certainly don't need any security.
Well, you might not say the application isn't
More.
So, occasionally. Or vetted,
Not
signed.
Which is fine, I'm not trying to encourage you to.
She's a shark.
I would just say that. It's,
usually work.
Right, I know, right, it is.
Oh, yeah, I'm on that.
Oh, are you on that? Okay,
Okay.
gotcha.
Committee,
I'm gonna
study.
participate in this.
Okay. I guess about 6 or 7.
I'm just gonna listen.
I
will say, I will say that.
They will not enforce the damn law.
Eddie.
So what they've done is they take away 500 parking places up there. They don't just take them away on King Street, they take away 2.
Yes, I feel that.
East and west.
Thank you.
And they force people to park all the way
So they
away.
may want to talk.
They chase people away.
James, how are you? Are you had to sit through that?
Well, I still, I think premium
There
on
was
the
a lot.
$40 just to run there.
I'm glad everybody survived.
We did.
Security didn't have to get along.
I just.
I would get
Baker's Club.
Yes.
Girls only. That's the only way to go. I'll have to text the board now. Back home.
Technically, we got corn.
Yeah.
Rates are still cheap. We should have raised shoes on Second Street. Don't have to shut them off.
Pretty sure that was.
They would, all they would do.
Right.
Is crush the
Unintended consequences. All right, we're gonna go ahead and restart here after that brief endurance test. And we are on to agenda item B1, new applications, 217 Congress Street, West Side, TMS number 460-03-03-053, zone DR1F, requesting a variance from section 54-301 to allow a one-story addition, sunroom, dining, bedroom, with a 14.2-foot rear side setback, 25 feet are required. The owner is Krishna Patel. The applicant is Julia F. Martin, architects. Mr. Batchelor.
This is a residential property in West Side neighborhood, and it is a single-story home on a pretty sizable lot. And the request is to build a rear addition onto this house, one-story addition. They would like to maintain the character of the property, and it's a beautiful property, really kind of a unique property. It's got that grand tree on one side, and you see on the site plan on the right the proposed addition onto the rear of the house. Again, a one-story addition to a one-story house, so that maintaining the character of the house with this addition that's tucked back, but it needs a variance to encroach into the rear setback. I think that the fact that it's a one-story addition to a one-story house means that they're trying to preserve the character and do so with a smaller addition that is tucked in the back of the property. And that's exactly what we'd like to see. We don't have any objections from any neighbors. We have support from the, I'll just go through these elevations. You see the one-story addition on the back in this side view. This is a rear view side shown here. So very modest addition to this house, but unfortunately there's no place to put it without putting it into a setback other than putting it on the side of the house, and that would alter the character substantially. So 213 Cooper Street and 213 Congress Street, 221 Congress Street. Written letters in support, and those are the two adjoining properties, I believe. So we support this and recommend approval.
Thank you, Lee. Is there anyone here in opposition to the application for 217 Congress Street? Do we have the owner applicant here? All right, is there anything you'd like to say to the board? All right, do I hear a motion?
Move for approval.
Mr. Bennett moves to approve. Mr. Morrison seconds. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None are opposed. The motion passes unanimously, and the variance is granted. Thank you. 217 Congress Street. All right. Next item on our agenda, B2, 20 Bennett Street, Charleston Village, TMS number 457-03-01-033, zoned STR, requesting a special exception under section 54-110 to extend a non-conforming duplex by increasing the total square footage of conditioned floor area to 3,400 square feet from 2,400 square feet, and increasing the total number of bedrooms to 6 bedrooms from 4 bedrooms. Requesting a special exception under section 54-110 to allow an elevated 2-story addition, unconditioned storage, living area, bedrooms, bathrooms, stairs, HVAC stand that extends a non-conforming 1-foot east side setback 6 feet are required. The owner is Bennett Street LLC 20. The applicant is R1 Studio LLC, Factor Corpus. Mr. Batchelor.
So the first request deals with the non-conforming use, which is a duplex on a lot that's not large enough to allow a duplex. And property is a 2-story home. The units are configured so that the first floor is one unit, the second floor is the other unit. And what they're requesting approval for is to make the main house all one unit. And then build a addition on the back, small addition on the back, with the second unit being on the ground or the first floor of that addition. So it would be a very small second unit, with the main house being the majority of square footage. So this shows you what they want to end up with. These are photographs of the property area, the property in question. And here's a site plan. This is the existing site plan. Proposed shows the addition here to the rear. I'll go through the floor plans just to help illustrate what I'm saying. But the second request, a special exception for extending the non-conforming setback. That so that pertains to the stairs over here. You'll see that in the side view elevation. So here's the floor plan. First floor of the main house becomes the living space. And this is the small one-bedroom second unit right here, accessed from this rear stair. This is the stair that requires the extension of the non-conforming setback side. And then second floor is the bedrooms and bathrooms, main residence. So that's the request. These are elevations showing the proposed changes. So here you see the existing on the bottom and the proposed up here. These are the stairs. Building itself meets the setback requirements, so it's just the stairs that require that extension. And the other side elevation is shown here. They are also raising the house to meet FEMA requirements. More views. So they canvass the neighbors and have a lot of support from residents on Bennett Street. Shown here, 22, 16, 18, 14 Bennett Street, 21 Bennett Street, all letters of support or signatures in support, as well as 5 and 1 Halsey Street behind this property. So they have substantial support. We don't know of any objections or concerns, and we think this is a good application and recommend approval.
All right, thank you, Lee. City recommends approval. Anybody in opposition here to the application for 20 Bennett Street? All right, seeing no one in opposition. Mr. Orfis, anything you'd like to say to the board about 20 Bennett?
At Orfis Harmon Studio, we do have to go through the BAR process on this. We've had one rendition already. BAR's comments are more about
Thank you.
as far as our conversation.
Thank you, Mr. Orfis. Any questions for the applicant, or do I hear a motion? All right, Ms. Grass moves to approve. I'm not sure who got the second in faster, Mr. McKay. We'll give it to you. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None are opposed. The motion passes unanimously, and the special exception is approved for 20 Bennett. Thank you. You've been patient. All right, next on our agenda, we have B3, 571 Savannah Highway in Windermere, TMS number 421-06-00-129, zoned SR2, Savannah overlay, requesting a variance from section 54-301 to allow a 2-story addition, conference room expansion, office, bathroom, with a 14-foot, 7.5-inch front setback, a 9-foot, 10-inch rear setback, a 23.8-foot total front and rear setback, 25 feet, 25 feet, and 50 feet are required. The owner is Edward Phipps. The applicant is Joel Adrian, architect. Mr. Batchel.
This is the old Windermere neighborhood, right on Savannah Highway at the corner with Stocker. You see it on the zoning map, and you see the very odd shape of this particular lot. The building was originally constructed as a boarding house and was used that way for many years, and then fell into disrepair. Neighbor purchased it, made it into his office space, and began fixing the property up. And then more recently, the current owner purchased the property and put a lot of money into fixing up the building, and would now like to construct this addition. It would be on this end of the building, so it would be closest to the intersection of Stocker and Savannah Highway. Materials here, the site plan. Here's a existing site plan of the property. It has parking in front and back. Here is the proposed addition shown here. So you see it's at the narrow end of the pie shaped lot, and that means it's approaching into the front and rear setbacks, which is the why this is coming before you. We think that this is a worthy request. It's a property that suffers a hardship because of its shape, obviously. And you see the setback lines, 25 feet here, 25 feet here. So there's really very little you can do to this property that doesn't require some sort of variance. I think this is a reasonable request. See the president of the neighborhood association here with us tonight, and perhaps he will be speaking in support, or he's not objecting to it, because I haven't heard of any objections. So my recommendation is going to be for approval. That the current owner has really done a nice job fixing this property up, and we'd like to help him continue to make this his office.
All right, thank you, Lee. Is there anybody here? So the city is in favor and recommends approval. Is there anyone here who wants to speak in opposition to the application? Yes, sir. Please come. Actually, let's hear from the applicant first. I'm sorry. Yeah. So we know we've got somebody who's going to comment. So let's hear from the applicant.
Thank you. Bill Adrian, for the addition of 571 Savannah. If we could go back to about 5 slides to the site plan that had the black there, right there. So current owner is needs more space. This is part of their conference room, actually big office, and the bathroom. So that's what the addition is. The lot, I think, looking at that hardship test, clearly satisfies all the requirements, specifically with that the shape, the fact that off of Stocker and Savannah Highway, we've got 25-foot setback. And with this, you'll see the total lot area is 10,682 square feet. Our buildable area setbacks would only be 3,200 square feet, 30%. And where is a variance of 3.33% of the total lot area. On that diagram, the areas that are dark, those little triangles and legends that are dark, are the outline of the existing structure that's there. And then the other hatched area is the area that we're asking for in addition to what's currently there. The location of it certainly makes sense when you think about the neighborhood. It is at the intersection, so it does not impact the adjacent neighbor at all. As far as crowding that space, the existing structure that's there does not change that shared property line. We think that like those elevations, that the architecture of it certainly is complementary, and basically duplicating the two-story gable feature that faces the highway and putting it on it. Is there any questions that y'all might have? I think that's solid application.
Okay,
Just one other thing
Yes,
to point
please.
out, I'm sorry. This does require going through the design review board for approval as well, so get another
layer of approval.
layer of approval.
All right, thank you, Mr. Adrian. Anybody else here to speak in support of the application report? From you, sir. Thank you.
I know it's been a long night and everybody's tired, so I'll try to be brief. My name is Ron Sassard, and as Lee said, I'm the president of Old Windermere Neighborhood Association. I actually live at 34 Berkeley, which is right around the corner from this structure. And I agree with what Lee said. When I moved into the neighborhood, this property known as Dr. Manor had fallen into disrepair, and in fact, it had become a flop house. People were staying there, cash on the barrel head kind of a place. The owner didn't even keep records on who was staying there, so it was not the kind of place you want in your neighborhood. When the current owner bought it, they had made quite an investment in it, and it's really become a very nice. It's an entranceway in our neighborhood, and it's also on the southern entranceway into the city. So I think it's a very nice feature for both of those purposes. I will say we're not very concerned about the impact on the setbacks or on the fact that it's going to a two-story structure instead of one story. But when we look at this property, our biggest concerns are, one, if we're adding another office, then we count 10 offices, and if you look at the plan for the property, there's 9 parking spaces. So I guess we just want to understand, and in particular, the sidewalk on the Savannah Highway side has been incorporated into the parking for the property. There's also a project to revamp that intersection, make it safer, and we believe that will reclaim that sidewalk as it should. So what happens for parking? So we just like to hear from the owner, what will happen in terms of parking, and do we think we have enough parking for this building, given the fact that we are adding an extra office?
Anybody before we?
That was one.
Yeah.
The
Okay,
second
that was.
one was on that property on the Stalker side. There were a couple of crepe myrtles that were cut down in actually the city right away by the owner about 2 or 3 months ago. We just want to also make sure that as part of this, those crepe myrtles are restored in a suitable fashion, and that there are no plans to open up the driveway on that Stalker side. We're going to feel that any changes to that part of the approach from the side would be detrimental to the neighborhood. And then finally, I think the question about the DRB was answered. This will go before the DRB, and we just want to make sure that would happen to ensure sexual integrity of the structure. But the big issue is the concern about parking. And will we have enough parking? And if there's not, will it overflow into the neighborhood and start causing safety issues as people park there on Stalker, which is, a very good intersection, or Stalker.
Thank you, Mr. Sasser. Anybody else in opposition to the application at 571 Savannah Highway? Seeing none, Mr. Adrian, you're entitled to rebuttal and respond to Mr. Sasser's comments.
Thank you. So I think Lee, if we go back maybe one more slide. Parking requirements. The office area 3709 divided by 500, 7.4 spaces required. C rounds up 8 spaces required. So we've got 9 spaces short. Is that correct? And that's the usable space structure. As far as the crepe myrtles, the owner says hand slapped the cart by the city, trimming the city's trees. And I believe the city already has the upper hand on that one. And we don't have any plans to widen or change the Stalker drive access because it is very busy, very They used to live at the end of Beverly Road, so it's just after all the way to the end where it curves. It's the one Beverly. Above the stairs. Is there any other questions?
Mr. Adrian, what did the city require mitigation for those trees? Or was the owner required to replant?
It was the replant, and then there was significant.
Okay, so that's coming.
Yes.
That's in the works.
So significant.
Great Mar leaving a tree.
It is a tree that's on the city's property.
All right. We have any questions for Lee? Any questions for Mr. Adrian? Clarification, parking issues? Motion.
I'll just quickly add, I look forward to seeing that end of the building completed. I'll move for approval.
All right, Mr. Bennett moves to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, Mr. Morrison seconds the motion. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None are opposed. The motion passes unanimously. And the variance for 571 Savannah Highway is granted. Thank you, Mr. Adrian. Thank you, Mr. Sasser. All right, next item on our agenda is B4, 1358 Memory Lane, Memminger Hall, TMS number 351-11-00-071, zoned SR1, requesting a variance after the fact from section 54-301 to allow detached accessory structure, shed, boathouse with a 1-foot west side setback, a 7-foot rear setback, 9 feet, 25 feet are required. The owner is Ryan C. Springer. The applicant is John Springer. Mr. Batchelor.
So this is a residential property in a neighborhood in West Ashley, Memminger Hall, and the request is an after-the-fact request because the applicant started constructing this accessory building in the backyard before they obtained a permit, city, and when they were provided the requirement for the permit, they stopped construction and going through the process. So they're doing the right thing, but we can't look at this any differently than we would if it was a submittal on paper before they ever started construction. So I don't want to hold that against the applicant that they started without a permit, but I have to look at this as if they were coming to us at the beginning of the process. And
That, I'm sorry to interrupt, but is that generally the rule?
pardon?
Is that the rule we're supposed to abide by, that somebody starts a building without a permit, so long as they're caught and stopped and agree to stay stopped, their application shouldn't suffer any prejudice from the.
Well, no, not necessarily. I'm not saying that, but I'm not necessarily saying that, but we offer the opportunity for people to remedy the situation by going through the permitting process. In this case, that involves coming to you and seeking a variance first. And I wouldn't give them any credit for stopping and following the procedures. I'm just simply saying that we didn't look
Y'all
at
the
it
ones that put in the application summary after the fact.
Right.
You could leave it out if you don't want us to
Okay.
consider it.
Well, you can consider it if you want. I'm just saying that, and sometimes applicants, sometimes people that do this don't stop. They're willing to come through this process. We have trouble, so. We would hold that
I'm
against
sorry to
them.
interrupt you, I'm just trying to get it clarification.
So this is the property, family home on the lot. And here is a view from Memory Lane, and you can see the structure under construction back here. And here's the site plan that was submitted by the applicant. And then I think my staff added some dimensional indications on here. But I'm not sure that this site plan is totally accurate with regard to the footprint of this building relative to all of these adjoining property lines. And I'll get to that in a minute. But nevertheless, it's a large accessory building. It's actually 708 square feet in size. These are drawings that were submitted by the applicant. See that this is the front elevation that I'm showing here on this page, and the building is 13 feet 11 inches tall at the front, and then on the side view, you see the slope of the roof down to 12 feet tall in the back. And then they submitted these letters of support from two adjoining neighbors at 1334 Foster Street and 1338 Foster Street. And but we also have a letter of objection from the other adjoining neighbor. And in this case, this is the subject property right here. This is the neighbor who submitted the letter objecting to this request. But before I get to that, I'll just mention that the variance is stated as being a variance to setback requirements to allow this building with a 1-foot west side setback and a 7-foot rear setback. I'm not sure if the 7-foot rear setback is actually accurate. It could be less than that. We do have a exception in our zoning ordinance. It does allow people to build accessory buildings in their backyard, be as close as 3 feet from side and rear property lines. And see, there's the site plan. And but the building itself has to satisfy certain conditions for us to be able to approve it. One of those conditions is that the footprint can't exceed 600 square feet in size. So this building is 108 square feet over that limit. The other one being that the eave height of the building not exceed 11 feet height. And then the height of the building can't exceed the height of the main building, main house. So in those two instances, the setbacks or the eave height and the square footage building in question exceeds the limits to grant that exception, which is why we're treating this as a variance. And so we're looking at this as if somebody walked through the door with a piece of paper saying, "This is what I want to do," and I'd say, "Sorry, you can't meet the requirements and get our approval," and I wouldn't support a variance. And I think I have to say that here. I just don't think that we ought to support this. And luckily, the applicant hasn't gone too far. They can modify it and make it work with our restrictions, but that's what I would suggest the board do, is deny this request. The applicant, the neighbor who objects to this, submitted some information that I'll just quickly go through. So this is a measurement taken from the back corner of the building under construction to the neighbor's fence, and it seems to be 25 inches off the property line, which would be not 7 feet. So there's a question about that, and then the height of the building, as you can see here, creates quite an impact on the neighbor. So I don't perfectly understand why they're objecting to this building being so close and so large right behind their property. So with that, I'll just say that I recommend it.
All right, so the city recommends denial of the variance request. Is there anybody here, just by a show of hands, who opposes the variance request at Memory Lane? All right, so just give us a second. We'll hear from the applicant owner. Guys like to say. Please state your name and address. Thank you.
John Springer.
Thank you, sir.
We're asking for a variance for this. The house was purchased originally
3 years ago with substantial damage that was unidentified. The inspection report. The house is in litigation right now, and there's a lot of termite damage. So the shed was built in theory to house the furniture and tools while the house gets remodeled. This is what I've got, and I understand that the heights are a bit involved. Maybe we can look back at this and readjust our heights and do something about the building size.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Springer. Anybody else in support of the application? Wants to speak? All right, we'll hear from the opposition. Please state your name and address for the record.
Name is Connie Barber. I reside at 1335 Stony Street, which is this property that is directly behind this building. I definitely oppose the continued construction on this building. Maybe we can come, but as it sits, it's an eyesore. It towers over my yard. It is not 3 feet setback from my property. Mr. Springer obviously planned on building this building because he took down a tree. He took out my chain link fence behind the privacy fence. He had a concrete slab done. So why he didn't apply for a permit, knowing that he was going to do this, I don't know. The building is massive. When I stand in my backyard, the view that picture is when you stand literally coming out my back gate into my backyard, which I spend all of my time with the dog. It's just very, very intrusive. It makes me feel very claustrophobic. The slant on the roof is slanted down, and it slants right down over where he said that he was going to put a gutter. But if he puts a gutter, he can't put it there because there's no room. So we'll have to put it here. So will the water run underneath my fence and into my yard? Do I have to contend with that? It's visible from the street, from Stony Street, and it's visible from the street from Memory Lane. And this is not a completed structure. This is just a frame. It's massive, 708 feet. The house is only 1,151 square feet. He purchased it on April the 26th of 2021, so he hasn't lived there 2 years yet. I am very sorry that he has extensive termite damage. These houses were built in the 1950s and 1960s, and my house was built in 59, and I purchased it 3 years ago, but I have lived in it as a renter for 10 years prior. And when I purchased it, I also got hit with termites, not once. And I had to rent a pod to store my furniture and belongings in. And that's only a temporary thing. You shouldn't get a special exemption because he needs to store furniture for a period of time while that's getting repaired. And then why do we have to have a structure that's so large after that repair? That's kind of where I'm at. I also have a petition with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 neighbors that live on Stony Street that oppose the approval of this variance and special exceptions.
You may bring that on up here. Thank you.
And, you know, we don't have an HOA in this area, and I just kind of feel like we have to depend on the zoning ordinances and kind of keep the integrity of our neighborhood. And I just don't feel like that this is a special circumstance. Nothing's changed in the property size. On the map that he submitted, he kind of cut out all the lower part. A lot of the sites on the lots in that neighborhood are very irregular shaped, so that doesn't make it special. And he's got the boat already parked in the driveway, so I'm not sure why he can't continue to leave the boat in the driveway. I'm just not sure that he met the variance test, and I
I would like for someone to come out and make sure that the measurement, I measured it from across the fence with a tape measure, but maybe he measured it from somewhere different, but on his plan, he says it's 7 feet, and it's not 7 feet off the property line. Very much.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your comments. Sir, you're in opposition. Yes, sir. Come on up and state your name, please.
Yes, my name is Brian Fletcher, and I'm a friend of hers, but I'm also helping her with this opposition to some extent. If we could pull up the map showing the red outlined area quickly. So this area here is the area that we're talking about in terms of a lot of irregular shaped areas. So we don't believe that meets the test for this one piece or variance there, because it really all of the lots here are irregular, and then the applicant, I believe he said that he had a problem with the fact that his lot was irregular. So I don't believe that it meets the variance test 1 and 2, just because of all of the other lots having similar patterns to them. And then variance test 3, when applied, would find probably that would not effectively prohibit unreasonably restrict the utilization of the property. Just simply, again, as you see here, you got the boat sitting out there, and so I think he fails that piece. And then again, the other piece that Ms. Barber is certainly concerned about, and I agree with her, is the size of the structure, the requirements that the total maximum percent of the lot occupied by the buildings in the SR1 zoning area is only 35%. We believe that with a house and with this 708 square foot structure, I think we would exceed that. I may be wrong in my calculations. Already there's an additional shed on the property, as I understand it, off to the side and the back. There's no statement of demolition of that. So now we're into 2 accessory buildings on the property. I think the ordinance is 1, if I'm not mistaken, under 54-506. So there's a lot that is said about the accessory building. Again, it exceeds the height of at least our setback, not setback, but the height of the principal building. And so, again, we think that there needs to be some adjustments to the height of the building. And and again, I think you've already brought up the 708 square feet following the ordinance, 54-6. Irrelevant, and there's also a special exception to the application, and we think that it's irrelevant to the application. We think it's a preposterous claim that the gentleman needs a special exception because he needs a place to store tools and his belongings during whatever may be happening in the principal building at some point in time. And others in the neighborhood have gone through remodels and a variety of other calamities like that. And they've either had pods in their yard to store their tools and belongings and whatnot, or they've gone to lease storage sheds. So just to have this as a special exception that he needs this, we think that is incorrect. And just as a point, in closing, demonstrated that obviously he has a blatant disregard for the city ordinances by not asking for a permit prior to. This is an after the fact building. We're not even certain whether the foundation of this building here meets code because there were no previous inspections. We're not certain if the existing structure there meets code because there were no previous inspections. So for any kind of variance on this or other variance requests by this applicant, we would ask that the Charleston zoning standards be upheld and the folks, somebody comes out and inspects this and makes sure that it's meeting the standards. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Fletcher. Anybody else in opposition to this application? Seeing none. Mr. Springer, any rebuttal? No, sir. Okay. All right. Any questions for the city? Any questions for the applicant? Do I hear a motion? Ally?
I just wanted to ask, just to be clear, there was no special exception with this.
Variance.
What's the height limitation for these structures?
Well, eve height, to meet our exception for a staff approval for an accessory building, it would be as close as 3 feet from rear side property lines. The height is limited to 11 feet to eve. And it's a 1.5 story building. The building itself can't exceed the height of the main house on the property. So those are considerations we take into account. But the way this is built, it exceeds the 11-foot height.
Any other questions? Do I have a motion?
Motion.
All right, Mr. McKay moves to deny the application for the variance. Is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Richards seconds the motion. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None are opposed. The motion passes. The variance is denied for 1358. All right, the next item on our agenda is B5, 657, 661, and 663 King Street, Cannonboro, Elliottboro, PMS number 460-04-04-090, 091, and 092, requesting a special exception under section 54-220 to allow an 18-unit accommodations use in a GBA general business accommodations zone district. Owner is the Twisted Bubble LLC, Gregory Richards. Applicant is James Wilson, Womble Bond Dickinson, US LLP. Mr. Batchel.
This property is on King Street, just south of the Highway 17 overpass. And shown here on the zoning map, it's in the accommodations overlay zone. This aerial view shows it's a vacant lot. And the proposal is to construct a hotel, 18-unit hotel on the property. We've submitted their responses to all the special exception requirements here. And I believe they meet all of those requirements, but I'll just run through the plans quickly. Here's the site plan. So there's a driveway entering the property on the north side of the property, and then an exit driveway on the south side. They can provide all the required parking on site. The guest drop-off pickup area would be on site. Have rooms above. The unusual thing about this type this application is that these sleeping units are multi-bedroom sleeping units. But we don't have anything in our special exception requirements that addresses that type of proposal. And elevations showing the proposal. There's no rooftop bar. I'll just point that out as well. So there is some ground floor restaurant space, but there's not a rooftop bar proposed on this plan. And elevations, of course, this will have to go through the BAR process for approval.
view. View, street view. So we did hear, I did receive an email from Marion Hawkins, the president of the Cannon-Borough Borough Neighborhood Association, indicating that they have no objections to this request, or at least no comments on this request. And I'm not aware of any other objections or concerns to this, so I believe they met the special exception requirements for this accommodations use, and I recommend approval.
All right, thank you, Lee. The city recommends approval of this hotel use under this special exception for 657, 661, and 663 King Street. Do we have anybody here in opposition to the application? No, I don't see anyone. Mr. Wilson, any presentation that you would like to make?
If I may, just very brief.
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Board. I'm James Wilson from Dickinson. I'm applicant with me, Mitch Morville, and we have an architect, Eddie Bello, and Victoria here as well. Only because we like to, for the hotel approvals, just make sure we very, very quickly get the points that the board's supposed to consider on approve it very quickly. We have met with the neighborhood association as well as the Charleston Foundation, Reservation Society, and no one's had any objections to it. It's a vacant lot next to the overpass, and we actually adjusted the height down for most of the site from 6 to 5. It is relatively small use, low impact, and in a commercial district. There are no dwelling units. There's no office. There's no storefront retail. So the points about not displacing those are not applicable. We won't significantly increase traffic on residential streets. Get good access to I-26 and I-17. The entry and exit is on King Street, and we have on-site parking as well as guest loading area site on King Street. The traffic memo is submitted as part of the application with specific analysis. It's a diverse mixed-use district with restaurant, office, retail. Will of course not exceed restaurant bar space. It's relatively less than 5%. Ground floor could be retail or it could be restaurant. The traffic and transportation department has reviewed the plans. I think Mr. Batchelder, that's correct, and I don't have any problems with it. We'll need the minimum 10 sleeping units. We'll have, of course, less than 50 to 80 unit use. We won't share building facilities operations with any other accommodations use. We'll include the required meeting conference space. That's all the plans. It will not result in there being more than 8 hotels on the peninsula. This, of course, is not a full service hotel. It will, of course, make a contribution to the affordable workforce housing account. We already talked about the entrance on King Street or Imperial Road. From use planes within 500 feet or variety of businesses, restaurants, office, retail, short-term rentals, and residential. There's one other accommodation use within that 500 feet, which is on Shepherd Street, which has got 33 units, so there's no excess of units right around here. The nearest residential district, of course, is on Line Street, and we pick up those uses low impact. It won't negatively affect them. And again, the entrance and all activities on the street in the commercial district. The accessory uses is really just that ground floor retail or restaurant, which is consistent with King Street and not expected to materially impact traffic or parking as shown in the memo. We've got the off-street parking requirement units, both for the guest units as well as for 2 spaces for employees. To address that requirement, there are no industrial uses producing hazardous substances nearby. The design intent is committed to sustainability. We're near King Street Shopping and Dining District, and we're located right on Arta, construction and the higher personnel residents on Charleston. So, that covers all the points. Obviously, glad to answer any questions. Thank you very much.
You may have just mentioned it, but where is the nearest hotel that's existing close by?
Probably the nearest hotel would be Hyatt Place, which is
Yeah.
a little bit further down Green Street. Not within 500.
Not within 500 feet.
No, it's at least a couple blocks. I want to say it's maybe 2.5 blocks south.
Yeah, that's the one next to U-Haul.
It's south of the spring.
Okay.
Yeah, south, yeah.
All right, anybody have any questions for Mr. Wilson? Any questions for the city? Do I hear a motion? Mr. McKay moves to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, Ms. Richards seconds. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None are opposed. The motion passes unanimously, and the special exception for the hospitality use for 657, 661, and 663 King is granted. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, the next item on our agenda is B6, 13 Rutledge Avenue, Charlestown, PMS number 457-12-03-018, zoned STR, requesting a special exception under section 54-110 to allow an elevated two-story addition, unconditioned storage, elevator, terrace, bedroom, closets, laundry room, office, workout, bath that extends a non-conforming 3.5-foot north side setback to allow a one-story front porch addition that extends a non-conforming 2-foot north side setback and extends a non-conforming 10.3-foot south side setback to allow an HVAC platform that extends a non-conforming 1.5-foot north side setback 6 feet and 12 feet are required. The owner is Eric Wooten. Applicant is Robbie Marty, architect. Mr. Batchelder.
This is just south of Broad and small single-family residence. You can see in this aerial view that it's 1.5 stories, whereas all the surrounding properties, I think, are 2 stories or 2.5. So it's an unusual property in that respect. What they're proposing to do is raise the house to meet FEMA requirements. It would raise substantially because those elevation requirements are pretty substantial here. And when they do that, they'd like to construct a new rear addition to the original house. Larger. So here is a view of the existing house and elevations of the existing house. Here is the existing site plan on top and the proposed site plan on the bottom. And what you'll notice is that there's a larger rear addition here, and it encroaches into that north side setback right in this location. And then there's also a larger front porch, also encroaching into that north side setback in this location. Added those 2 areas on this. And then there's the HVAC stand back here as well. So that covers all the issues with this. The proposed elevations are shown here. More drawings. Proposed house. That concludes my presentation, and my recommendation is for approval. We're not aware of any objections or concerns. I'm not sure if the applicant knows of support adjoining properties, but we recommend approval.
All right, the city recommends approval. Mr. Warlick, I assume you're not here in opposition. All right, Robbie, is there anything you'd like to say about this?
We did have, the homeowners did speak to their neighbors, and the neighbors don't have any problems at all, but we don't have anything written.
All right, Any questions for the applicant? Any questions for the city? Do I have a motion? All right, Ms. Grass moves to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Bennett seconds the motion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None are opposed. The motion passes unanimously, and your special exception for 13 Rutledge Avenue is granted. All right, Mr. Patient here. Final item on our agenda is B7, 58 Colleton Drive, Burns Downs, TMS number 421-01-00-167, zoned SR2, requesting a special exception under section 54-110 to allow an HVAC platform that extends a non-conforming 6-foot north side setback, 9 feet are required. The owners are Archibald and Marta Hampton. The applicant is William W. Warlick, architect. Mr. Batchelder.
So Burns Down house, and proposal is to elevate and add an addition to the house question. Use of that. Site plan, and so all we're talking about is this one little HVAC stand right here, which has to be, they have to elevate the units when they do this, and build a stand, and the stand is extending the non-conforming setback on that side of the property. Otherwise, all the changes meet the setback requirements. Sort of those elevations here. Here, there's the HVAC stand right there, tucked in. And so that concludes it. I do have a letter of support from 60 Colleton Drive. That's the most impacted neighbor. Presentation, our recommendation is in support, and I'm happy that Mr. Warlick dropped by for so long tonight. It's been a while since he's been here, so happy to have him.
All right, so the city recommends approval of the special exception requested for 58 Colleton Drive. Any questions? Do I hear a motion? Mr. Morrison moves to approve. Do I have a second? Mr. Richards seconds the motion. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None are opposed. The motion passes. The special exception is granted. Thank you, Mr. Warlick, for your patience.
This year's patience award.
Ms. Richards.
Ms. Richards, thank you.
Think of all the free drama we provided.
Thank you.
I was
It's the best thing that the city has done. I sat in my office for 3 hours and listened to all of that. It worked. It's great.
But you weren't here to help with the discussion on your earlier project.
Right. I wasn't.
Good to see you.